The Haunting of Hallow Manor. The night was cold and damp, the fog a shroud that enveloped Hallow Manor, a decrepit Victorian mansion that stood in eerie silence. Sarah, a skeptical paranormal investigator with a keen eye for debunking ghostly tales, found herself at the foot of the grand, but dilapidated, entrance. The stories she'd heard of this place had chilled her to the bone, and yet she couldn't resist the allure of the unknown. As Sarah stepped inside the mansion, a gust of chilly wind brushed against her cheek, sending shivers down her spine. The dimly lit corridor seemed to stretch endlessly before her. The walls, adorned with faded wallpaper that had once been vibrant, whispered of a time long past. The air was heavy with history, and Sarah could feel the weight of forgotten memories pressing down on her. With every step, the wooden floorboards creaked beneath her. She couldn't help but wonder what secrets they held, what stories they longed to share. It was in these moments of uncertainty that Sarah questioned the wisdom of her decision. But she had a reputation to uphold, and this place was a challenge she couldn't refuse. As she made her way deeper into the mansion, the atmosphere grew more oppressive. Shadows danced on the walls, casting eerie shapes that seemed to move of their own accord. Her heart raced, and her skepticism wavered. Perhaps there was some truth to the tales of hauntings after all. Sarah finally reached the heart of Hallow Manor, a room that was said to be the epicenter of the supernatural occurrences. The room was adorned with tattered draperies that swayed gently in the chill of the night, though no breeze stirred them. The atmosphere here was heavy, charged with an energy that sent shivers through her. In the center of the room, she set up a small table and arranged a seance. Candles flickered, casting an eerie glow across the room as she began to summon any spirits that might be present. She had conducted countless seances in the past, but this one was different. There was an intensity in the air, a feeling that something wanted to be heard. "Is there anyone here?" Sarah's voice quivered as she spoke. She extended her hand, placing it on an old wooden planchette. She waited, her breath held. And then it happened. The planchette moved, slowly at first, then with purpose, spelling out letters that formed a name: Thomas. A name from the past, a name with a story to tell. As the seance continued, the room grew colder, and an ethereal presence seemed to surround her. Sarah, initially a skeptic, now felt an undeniable connection to the spirit that had made itself known. She could sense the torment in Thomas, a man who had met a tragic end and now longed for redemption. He had been trapped in Hallow Manor, unable to find peace in the afterlife. Through a series of messages and responses, Sarah learned of Thomas's past. He had been falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit and had perished in the mansion, a victim of his own despair. His spirit had remained trapped, seeking vindication and closure for the injustice that had been done to him. With each revelation, the seance became more intense, and the room seemed to pulse with the energy of both the living and the dead. Sarah couldn't deny the presence of the tormented spirit any longer. As the night wore on, Sarah felt a growing urgency to help Thomas find the redemption he sought. She uncovered hidden diaries within the mansion, shedding light on the events that had transpired so many years ago. With this newfound knowledge, she set out to clear Thomas's name and lay his troubled spirit to rest. It was a journey filled with peril, as malevolent forces within the mansion tried to thwart her efforts. But Sarah was determined to uncover the truth and give Thomas the peace he deserved. In the end, it was a battle of wills, a struggle to reveal the past and break the curse that had held Thomas captive. With unwavering determination, Sarah succeeded, and Thomas's spirit was finally set free. As the first light of dawn broke through the foggy autumn night, Hallow Manor stood silent and still. The weight of centuries of despair and torment had been lifted. Sarah, the once skeptical investigator, had brought closure to a restless soul and discovered that sometimes the most haunting mysteries were those that begged to be solved. The story of the haunting of Hallow Manor serves as a chilling reminder that even the most skeptical minds can be drawn into the enigmatic world of the supernatural, and that redemption is a powerful force that can transcend the boundaries of life and death. Whispers in the walls, the pale glow of a full moon-bathed Blackwood house in an eerie, ethereal light, illuminating its Gothic spires and worn, weathered facade. It stood alone, an isolated mansion on the outskirts of town, a place forgotten by time. The wind sighed through the ancient trees that surrounded it, their branches swaying like skeletal fingers in a macabre dance. Rebecca, a rider with a heavy heart and a persistent bout of writer's block, found herself at the gates of Blackwood House. Her need for inspiration was a relentless specter that haunted her every day. She believed that seclusion in the old mansion would help her find the words she so desperately sought. The moment Rebecca crossed the threshold, a heavy weight pressed down on her chest. She realized that solitude could be a double-edged sword, and Blackwood House was the blade. The silence was oppressive, almost suffocating. The air itself seemed to carry the whispers of secrets long buried within the walls. At night, the mansion came alive with shadows that danced in the pale moonlight. They moved in strange, unsettling patterns, as if the very walls themselves had something to say. But it was the voices that Rebecca couldn't ignore, the whispered secrets that tugged at her sanity. She tried to dismiss the voices, convinced they were mere figments of her imagination, a byproduct of her isolation and desperation. But they persisted, growing louder and more insistent with each passing day. It was as though the very house spoke to her, revealing tales of woe, deceit, and despair. The unsettling apparitions soon followed. Faces, twisted in anguish, appeared in the corners of rooms, their mournful eyes pleading for release from an unseen torment. Rebecca could no longer deny the sinister presence that surrounded her. One night, as the moon reached its zenith and the walls seemed to close in, she followed the whispers to the heart of the mansion. There, in a forgotten chamber, she discovered a hidden passage that led to a chamber deep within the house. The chamber was filled with books, ancient volumes filled with the darkest of secrets. Rebecca felt a compulsion to read them, to uncover the stories that had been concealed for so long. As she pored over the pages, the words seemed to leap off the paper, and the voices in her head grew louder, more insistent. She could feel the madness seeping into her very soul. The stories in the books were tales of betrayal, murder, and unrelenting despair. They were the stories of those who had lived and died within the walls of Blackwood House, their voices forever trapped in the pages of those cursed books. The more Rebecca read, the deeper she descended into the dark abyss of the house's history. As the days turned into weeks, Rebecca's appearance grew haggard, her eyes haunted by the things she had witnessed and the words she had read. She had become a prisoner of the mansion, ensnared by the stories that whispered in the walls and the apparitions that lurked in the shadows. The boundary between reality and delusion blurred, and she could no longer discern where the voices ended and her thoughts began. She wrote feverishly, chronicling the tales of the damned, the stories that had consumed her. She hoped that by putting the words on paper, she could exorcise the darkness that had taken hold. But it was a futile effort. The more she wrote, the more the voices encroached on her sanity. She could no longer distinguish herself from the tortured souls that haunted Blackwood House. Her descent into madness was inevitable. One fateful night, as the moon hung heavy in the sky, Rebecca stood on the precipice of the abyss. The voices had grown deafening, their anguish and despair echoing in her mind. She could no longer bear the weight of the stories that had consumed her. In a fit of desperation, she flung open the windows, allowing the cold night air to rush in. The voices, the apparitions, they all seemed to converge upon her. It was as though the very house had come alive, its dark history reaching out to claim her. Rebecca's scream pierced the night as she stepped out onto the ledge, ready to embrace the darkness that had taken hold. In that moment, she became one with the stories that whispered in the walls, a part of the tortured history of Blackwood House. And as the moon cast its pale light upon the mansion, it bore witness to the tragic fate of a writer who had sought inspiration but had found only madness. Blackwood House, with its sinister voices and whispered secrets, had claimed another victim, leaving behind a legacy of horror and despair that would linger for generations to come. The story of whispers in the walls serves as a haunting reminder that the power of words, when wielded in the darkest of tales, can echo through the ages, carrying with them the weight of the souls they consume. The Curse of the Van Durlock Mansion. It was a dark and stormy night when David, a skilled architect, stood before the looming and ominous Van Durlock Mansion. The mansion was anything but welcoming, its twisted spires and weathered stones casting eerie shadows in the dim moonlight. An air of gloom hung heavily around the estate, as if the very walls whispered of dark secrets and unfulfilled vengeance. David had been hired to renovate this cursed mansion, an opportunity that promised both riches and prestige. But as he stepped through the creaking doors, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just crossed into a realm of despair and malice. The mansion's interior was equally foreboding, with grand halls and cavernous rooms that had once witnessed both opulence and tragedy. Dust-covered chandeliers dangled precariously from the ceiling, and portraits of Van Durlock ancestors adorned the walls, their eyes seemingly following David's every move. As the days turned into weeks, David immersed himself in the restoration project. He drew up meticulous blueprints to breathe new life into the decaying mansion, determined to erase the years of neglect and decay. However, the malevolence that clung to the mansion refused to be forgotten. One evening, as David toiled in his study, he laid out his blueprints on the grand oak desk. He stepped away for a moment, only to return to find them missing. Panic surged through him as he searched frantically, but the blueprints had vanished without a trace. Desperation gnawed at David as he reconstructed the lost designs from memory. But his work was plagued by inexplicable delays and obstacles. The once promising project became a labyrinth of frustration, and David could no longer deny the mansion's cursed legacy. It was during one restless night, as a violent storm raged outside, that David first encountered the malevolent spirit of Lady Alois van Durlock. She materialized before him, her ghostly form swathed in a tattered gown and her eyes filled with torment. "Why have you come to defile my home?" she whispered, her voice carrying an otherworldly chill. David, shaken to the core, stammered, "I was hired to restore this place, to bring it back to its former glory." Lady Alois's spectral form contorted with anger, her vengeful desires palpable in the air. "You do not understand the curse that binds this estate," she hissed. "None shall leave until my demands are met." David's heart raced as he listened to Lady Alois's chilling tale. She spoke of betrayal and treachery, of a past marred by greed and deception. The mansion, once a symbol of her family's prosperity, had become her eternal prison, and she sought vengeance against those who had wronged her. With each passing day, Lady Alois's presence grew more oppressive. She appeared at unexpected moments, her eyes filled with accusing despair. David was tormented by her relentless pursuit, the weight of her curse suffocating his every breath. Despite his skepticism, David had no choice but to confront the malevolent spirit head-on. He delved into the mansion's history, unearthing old journals and letters that revealed the dark deeds of Lady Alois's past. He began to understand the price of greed, the depths to which people would sink for wealth and power. In his search for a solution, David uncovered a long-forgotten promise, a pact made between Lady Alois and her betrayers. It was a promise of restitution, of recompense for the wrongs that had been done to her. With newfound determination, David set out to fulfill the pact, to right the ancient wrongs that had ensnared Lady Alois's spirit. It was a perilous journey filled with uncertainty, as malevolent forces within the mansion sought to thwart his efforts. As the final pieces of the pact fell into place, Lady Alois's ghostly form underwent a transformation. Her eyes, once filled with anguish, now held a glimmer of peace. The curse that had bound her for centuries began to lift, and with a final, mournful sigh, she was freed from the mansion's eternal grasp. David watched as Lady Alois's spirit dissolved into the ethereal night. Her curse vanquished at last, the mansion, once shrouded in darkness, now seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The malevolence that had haunted the estate for centuries had finally been laid to rest. The curse of the Van Durlock mansion serves as a haunting reminder that the sins of the past have a way of reaching into the present, and that sometimes the only path to redemption is through the fulfillment of long-forgotten promises. It is a tale of vengeance and release, of curses broken and the cost of greed. The portrait of despair. The grim Chambers estate stood isolated and brooding, shrouded in the relentless roar of a thunderstorm. Its aged stone walls and decrepit spires seemed to reach out from another era, a time of secrets and obsessions. Within these haunted walls resided a portrait, a cursed image that would draw Emily, an art historian, into a world of despair and darkness. Emily had heard the tales of the mysterious portrait of Lady Isabella, a painting that had entranced generations and driven them to madness. As she stood before the looming portrait, she felt an irresistible pull, an almost magnetic force that drew her closer. Lady Isabella's face was a study in vanity, with a beauty so haunting that it seemed to transcend time. Her eyes held an enigmatic allure, and her lips curled in a secretive smile. Emily couldn't tear her gaze away. It was as if the portrait held her soul captive. The storm outside raged on, its thunderous echoes merging with the palpable tension in the room. And then, in the blink of an eye, Emily saw it, a subtle change in Lady Isabella's expression. Her smile transformed into a sinister grin, and her eyes, once beguiling, now seemed to mock Emily's curiosity. A chill ran down Emily's spine as she realized the truth. The portrait was not merely an image, it was a portal to another world, a world where vanity and obsession had festered into something malevolent. She was now bound to the portrait, and it would claim her. With every passing day, Emily's obsession grew. She spent hours studying the portrait, convinced that it held the key to a long-forgotten story. The more she delved into Lady Isabella's life, the more the portrait seemed to change. Her grin grew more sinister, her eyes more mocking. As the storm raged on, Emily's world began to unravel. Apparitions haunted the estate, their mournful presence a reminder of the curse that now gripped her. She saw Lady Isabella's face in her dreams, her laughter echoing through her mind. Emily's friends and family became alarmed at her descent into madness. She had become a recluse, lost in her obsession with the cursed portrait, but she couldn't break free, as if some unseen force held her captive. One fateful night, as the storm reached its peak, Emily felt a presence in the room. She turned to see Lady Isabella herself, her ghostly form emerging from the portrait. Her eyes held a malevolence that struck terror into Emily's heart. "You sought to uncover my secrets," Lady Isabella hissed, her voice carrying an otherworldly chill. "Now you shall share in my fate." Emily tried to flee, but the room seemed to close in around her. She was trapped, ensnared by the very portrait that had lured her in. The storm outside raged in symphony with the darkness that now consumed her. Lady Isabella's ghostly form circled Emily, taunting her with visions of the vanity and obsession that had led to her own doom. It was a chilling revelation, a glimpse into a world where beauty had been twisted into a grotesque curse. Desperation gripped Emily as Lady Isabella's ghostly hands closed around her throat. It was then that Emily understood the price of her obsession, the danger of seeking to uncover the secrets of the cursed portrait. As the thunderstorm raged outside, Lady Isabella claimed Emily's soul, adding it to the collection of those who had fallen victim to the portrait's sinister allure. The storm outside slowly subsided, leaving only the echo of Emily's despair behind. The portrait of despair serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of obsession and the allure of the enigmatic. It is a tale of vanity turned to grotesque horror, of a portrait that holds the power to ensnare the soul, and of the price one pays for delving too deeply into the mysteries of the past. Shadows in the Silvertop Manor. Silvertop Manor stood in eerie silence on a moonless night, shrouded in a thick mist that seemed to cling to its weathered stones. James, a skeptical historian with a penchant for debunking legends, had arrived at the mansion with an air of indifference. The stories that surrounded Silvertop Manor were tales of haunting and darkness, but James dismissed them as mere superstition. The mansion's facade was imposing, its grandeur long faded, and the windows were obscured by an unsettling gloom. But as James crossed the threshold, he couldn't help but feel a chill that seemed to seep into his very bones. Inside, the mansion was a labyrinth of shadowed corridors and decaying elegance. Faded portraits of the Silvertop ancestors adorned the walls, their eyes following James's every move, their faces twisted in unsettling expressions. James had come to Silvertop Manor to unravel the mysteries that shrouded its past, to dismiss the legends as mere fiction. He began his investigation with a sense of determination. But as he delved deeper, he couldn't help but notice something peculiar. The shadows in the mansion seemed to move of their own accord. At first, James brushed it off as a trick of the dim lighting, but as he continued his exploration, the phenomenon became undeniable. The shadows shifted and swayed, as if they were living entities, with a sinister intent. The unsettling encounters began soon after. Whispers echoed through the corridors, and the sound of faint footsteps echoed in empty rooms. James's skepticism wavered, but he was determined to find a rational explanation for the phenomena he witnessed. It was during one restless night that the shadows came to life in a horrifying display. As James lay in bed, the room plunged into darkness, and the shadows writhed and twisted. They coalesced into a spectral figure, a shadowy silhouette that seemed to defy the laws of nature. The figure moved with a ghostly grace, its form shifting and elongating as it approached. James's heart raced, and a paralyzing fear gripped him. He tried to scream, but no sound escaped his lips. The shadowy figure drew near, its eyes, or what passed for them, fixed on James with an unnerving intensity. It reached out with a dark, amorphous hand, and James felt a searing pain as it made contact. It was as though the very essence of his being was being drained away. As quickly as it had appeared, the shadowy figure dissipated, leaving James gasping for breath. He knew then that the legends were not mere superstition, that something malevolent lurked within the walls of Silvertop Manor. With each passing day, the encounters with the shadows grew more frequent and more menacing. James felt as though the very mansion itself had come alive, its dark history reaching out to claim him. He delved into the records and journals of the Silvertop family, uncovering tales of obsession and madness that spanned generations. The horrifying truth of Silvertop Manor began to unravel. The mansion had been a place of dark rituals and unholy pacts, a place where the past and present merged in a twisted dance of malevolence. The shadows that now haunted James were the remnants of those who had fallen victim to the mansion's cursed history. As the moonless nights turned into weeks, James's skepticism had all but evaporated. He knew that he had to confront the terrifying history of Silvertop Manor if he was to escape its clutches. But the shadows were relentless, and the past would not release its grip. It was during a confrontation with the shadowy figure that James uncovered a horrifying truth. The figure spoke of the pain and torment it had endured, a pain that had been passed down through the generations. It was the result of a curse that could only be broken by confronting the past and acknowledging the horrors that had taken place within the mansion's walls. With newfound determination, James delved deeper into the mansion's history, seeking to uncover the source of the curse. He knew that to break the curse, he would have to confront the malevolent forces that had taken root in Silvertop Manor. In a final, chilling revelation, James discovered the truth about the curse that bound the mansion. It was a curse born of obsession and darkness, a curse that had trapped the souls of those who had succumbed to its malevolent allure. The shadows were the remnants of those who had fallen victim to the curse, and they sought release from their eternal torment. With this knowledge, James embarked on a perilous journey to confront the past and break the curse that held Silvertop Manor in its sinister grasp. It was a battle of skepticism against belief, of reason against the supernatural. As the moonless night darkened the mansion, James faced the shadows in a final showdown. The past and present collided in a tumultuous storm of darkness and light. The shadows writhed and contorted, their tortured souls seeking release. With unwavering determination, James confronted the source of the curse, a malevolent force that had fed on the despair and darkness of generations. In a climactic struggle, he managed to break the curse's hold on the mansion, setting free the tortured souls that had been trapped for centuries. As the first light of dawn broke through the shrouded windows, Silvertop Manor stood silent and still. The curse had been lifted, and the shadows that had haunted James were gone, leaving behind a sense of peace and closure. Shadows in the Silvertop Manor serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the past can reach out to claim the present, and that skepticism can be tested when confronted with the supernatural. It is a tale of malevolent shadows, a cursed history, and the power of confronting the darkness that lurks within. The cursed heirloom on a stormy night, with thunder echoing through the walls of Hauntington Mansion, Charlotte found herself at the threshold of her family's ominous past. She had inherited an heirloom, a relic of her lineage, that would thrust her into a world of malevolent spirits and hidden secrets. The mansion, a towering Gothic structure, was a place of faded grandeur, its dark history embedded in every corner. The family's legacy was tainted by tragedy and whispers of dark deeds. Charlotte had always been an outsider in her own family, and she had no desire to be entangled in the web of their unsettling past. But as she held the cursed heirloom in her hands, an ornate locket that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy, Charlotte felt a connection that she could not ignore. It was as though the locket held the secrets of her ancestors, and she was drawn to uncover the truth. The storm outside raged on, its relentless fury mirroring the turmoil within the mansion. Charlotte, driven by a sense of duty and curiosity, opened the locket, revealing a faded portrait of a woman she had never seen before. The woman's eyes held a haunting sadness, and her presence seemed to linger in the room. As the days turned into weeks, Charlotte began to experience unsettling phenomena. Shadows moved of their own accord, whispers echoed through the mansion's echoing halls, and the portrait within the locket seemed to come to life, its eyes following her with an accusing gaze. The mansion became a place of dread, and Charlotte's sleep was plagued by nightmares that left her shaken and exhausted. Possession by an entity, an otherworldly force, became a terrifying reality. The entity seemed to inhabit her very being, speaking through her in voices that were not her own. Charlotte, determined to uncover the truth, delved into her family's history. She discovered tales of a cursed heirloom, a locket that had brought tragedy and despair to her ancestors. It was said that the locket held the souls of those who had suffered at the hands of her family. Ancestral revelations came to light, revealing the dark secrets that had haunted the Hauntington lineage for generations. It was a tale of betrayal, greed, and the sacrifice of innocent lives. The entity that possessed Charlotte was the vengeful spirit of a woman who had been wronged by her own family. With every revelation, the entity's grip on Charlotte grew stronger. It seemed to revel in tormenting her, using her as a vessel for its malevolence. Charlotte's family history was a tapestry of guilt and betrayal, and the entity sought retribution for the sins of the past. As the storm outside intensified, Charlotte faced a chilling climax. The entity, now fully in control of her body, confronted her family, accusing them of the atrocities they had committed. The ancestral spirits, bound by the locket's curse, sought justice and retribution. In a climactic struggle, the entity used Charlotte's voice to expose the family's darkest secrets. It was a horrifying revelation, a reckoning that forced her family to confront the guilt that had been passed down through the generations. The storm outside reached its zenith, and the mansion seemed to tremble with the weight of its dark history. As the truth was laid bare, the entity's grip on Charlotte began to wane, and her family was forced to accept the burden of their guilt. In the end, as the storm subsided and the mansion stood in eerie silence, the entity was released from its tormented existence, and the locket's curse was broken. Charlotte, no longer possessed by the vengeful spirit, was left to confront the tragic legacy of her family. The cursed heirloom serves as a haunting reminder that the sins of the past can reach out to claim the present, and that the burden of family history can be a heavy one to bear. It is a tale of ancestral guilt, a cursed heirloom, and the power of confronting the darkness that lurks within one's lineage. The Seance in Rosewood House. Rosewood House, a Gothic mansion of formidable grandeur, stood in eerie silence on a moonless night. Its towering spires and ivy-covered walls seemed to loom over the landscape like a sentinel of the past. The mansion had long been rumored to be haunted, its dark history filled with tales of restless spirits and unsolved mysteries. Sarah, a psychic medium with a unique connection to the spirit world, had been drawn to Rosewood House by a powerful force. She had heard the whispers of the mansion's malevolent apparitions, and her curiosity had led her to the doorstep of this foreboding estate. She was determined to uncover the secrets that lingered within, to help the tormented souls find peace. The night was still, the air heavy with a sense of foreboding, as Sarah prepared for the seance. The mansion's interior was shrouded in darkness, save for the flickering candles that cast dancing shadows on the walls. The room was filled with an otherworldly chill, as if the spirits that resided within were already aware of her presence. Sarah's connection to the spirit world was both a gift and a curse, and she knew that the seance she was about to perform would be unlike any she had experienced before. As she lit the candles and arranged the room, she could feel the restless energy of the spirits, their malevolence palpable in the air. The seance began, and Sarah reached out to the spirits with a sense of trepidation. Her voice, soft and ethereal, echoed through the room as she called upon the souls that lingered in the darkness. As she spoke, the candles flickered erratically, their flames dancing in response to the supernatural presence. The room seemed to come alive as the spirits made their presence known. Malevolent apparitions materialized, their ghastly forms twisting and contorting in the dim light. They moaned and wailed, their voices a chorus of despair that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. The spirits were vengeful, their anger and torment pouring forth in a torrent of emotions. They accused Sarah of meddling in their affairs, of disturbing the peace they had sought in death. It was a race against time, as the malevolent apparitions threatened to overwhelm her. With unwavering determination, Sarah delved into the spirits' tormented past, seeking to uncover the secrets that bound them to Rosewood House. It was a harrowing journey through the darkness of their histories, a descent into the depths of their pain and suffering. As the seance continued, the spirits revealed a tale of betrayal, greed, and unspeakable acts. The mansion had been a place of darkness, where the living had conspired against the dead, and the restless souls had been trapped in a cycle of anguish and despair. Sarah's connection to the spirit world allowed her to communicate with the tormented souls, to offer them solace and understanding. She sought to bridge the gap between the living and the dead, to help the spirits find release from their eternal torment. But the malevolent apparitions were not easily appeased. They lashed out with a ferocity that was both terrifying and relentless, their spectral forms contorting with rage. It was a battle of wills, as Sarah struggled to maintain her connection to the spirits. As the seance reached its climax, Sarah confronted the source of the spirits' torment. It was a malevolent force that had held them captive, a dark entity that fed on their suffering. With every revelation, the entity's power waned, and the spirit's torment began to subside. In a final, chilling confrontation, Sarah faced the malevolent entity, using her unique connection to the spirit world to challenge its authority. It was a battle of light against darkness, of compassion against cruelty. As the moonless night outside the mansion gave way to the first rays of dawn, the malevolent entity was vanquished, and the malevolent apparitions were finally at peace. Rosewood House stood in eerie silence, its haunted history finally laid to rest. The seance in Rosewood House serves as a haunting reminder of the power of communication with the spirit world, and the importance of offering solace to restless souls. It is a tale of vengeful spirits, a cursed mansion, and the battle between the living and the dead. The Labyrinthine Secrets of Grimshaw Manor. Grimshaw Manor, a sprawling, maze-like mansion, stood as a foreboding monolith on a foggy night. Its ivy-covered walls and Gothic spires seemed to stretch into infinity, and its history was shrouded in darkness. Michael, an urban explorer with a taste for the macabre, had ventured into the heart of the Labyrinthine Manor seeking thrills. But little did he know that he was about to become lost in a maze of malevolent spirits and deadly traps. The night was cloaked in an eerie fog, the mansion's silhouette obscured by the mist that clung to its stones. Michael's flashlight cast long, wavering shadows as he ventured deeper into Grimshaw Manor, his heart racing with excitement. He had heard the tales of the mansion's sinister past, of the secrets that lay hidden within its walls, and he was determined to uncover them. The interior of the mansion was a disorienting labyrinth of hallways, rooms, and staircases that seemed to lead to nowhere. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, and Michael's footsteps echoed in the oppressive silence. He was alone in this house of horrors, or so he thought. As Michael delved deeper into the mansion, he began to sense an unsettling presence, as though he were being watched by unseen eyes. Whispers echoed through the hallways, and the temperature seemed to drop with each step. Grimshaw Manor was not the abandoned relic he had assumed it to be. It was during his exploration that Michael encountered the first supernatural obstacle. A door that had been locked from the outside slammed shut behind him, trapping him in a small, dimly lit room. Panic surged through him as he struggled to open the door, but it seemed to be held fast by an unseen force. With mounting dread, Michael realized that he was not alone in the room. Apparitions materialized from the shadows, their ghostly forms taking shape with an air of malevolence. They moaned and wailed, their voices a chorus of despair that sent shivers down his spine. The apparitions seemed to be trapped in a never-ending cycle of torment, their faces twisted in anguish. They accused Michael of trespassing on their domain, of disturbing the peace they had sought in death. The air grew colder, and the walls of the room seemed to close in, suffocating him. Desperation gripped Michael as he sought a way to escape the malevolent spirits that had imprisoned him. He could feel their icy fingers closing around him, their ethereal presence weighing him down. It was a fight for survival, a battle against forces beyond his comprehension. With every passing minute, the mansion revealed its sinister secrets. Trapped in its maze-like interior, Michael encountered deadly traps and supernatural obstacles at every turn. The malevolent spirits seemed to relish in his suffering, their spectral forms haunting his every move. It was a claustrophobic nightmare, a perilous journey through a house of horrors that showed no mercy. Michael's hubris, his belief that he could conquer the secrets of Grimshaw Manor, had led him into a living nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape. As he delved deeper into the mansion's mysteries, Michael uncovered a tale of arrogance and betrayal that had led to the mansion's curse. The malevolent spirits were the remnants of those who had suffered at the hands of a cruel and power-hungry master. Their torment had become a part of the mansion's very essence, and they sought retribution for the sins of the past. With every revelation, the malevolent spirits grew more powerful, their grip on Michael's soul more suffocating. It was a race against time, as he struggled to find a way out of the Labyrinthine Manor and break free from the curse that bound him to its malevolent secrets. In a final, chilling confrontation, Michael faced the malevolent entity that held the mansion in its thrall. It was a battle of wills, a test of his courage and determination. With every ounce of strength he could muster, he challenged the entity's authority and sought to free himself from its malevolent grasp. As the fog outside began to lift and the first rays of dawn broke through the mansion's windows, the malevolent entity was vanquished, and the malevolent spirits were finally at peace. Grimshaw Manor stood in eerie silence, its cursed history laid to rest. The Labyrinthine Secrets of Grimshaw Manor serves as a haunting reminder of the consequences of arrogance and the perils of hubris. It is a tale of a house of horrors, a malevolent curse, and the battle for survival in the face of supernatural forces beyond one's control. The haunting melody of Ravenscroft House. Ravenscroft House, a sinister mansion shrouded in secrets, stood sentinel on a mournful rainy evening. Its foreboding presence was accentuated by the relentless downpour that seemed to weep for the tragedies that had befallen the house. Amelia, a gifted musician, had come to Ravenscroft House in search of inspiration, but little did she know that she would become entangled in a haunting melody that threatened her sanity and her soul. The rain outside was a mournful lament, its melancholic rhythm echoing the house's tragic history. Amelia had always been drawn to the macabre and the mysterious, and she hoped that Ravenscroft House would offer her the inspiration she sought. She had heard the rumors of a cursed piano that resided within, and her curiosity had led her to the mansion's ominous doors. The interior of the mansion was a labyrinth of shadows and echoes, its grandeur long faded, and its atmosphere weighed down by a sense of foreboding. Amelia's footsteps on the creaking wooden floorboards seemed to reverberate through the silence, and she felt as though the house itself was listening. It was in the heart of the mansion that she discovered the cursed piano. The instrument was a grand masterpiece, its keys covered in an intricate pattern of roses and thorns, and its presence seemed to demand attention. As she brushed her fingers over the keys, a haunting melody emerged, as if the piano itself was reaching out to her. The music was ethereal, its notes filled with longing and sorrow. Amelia was captivated by the melody, and her fingers danced across the keys in response. It was as though the piano was guiding her, urging her to play. The notes flowed from her with an otherworldly ease, and she felt as though she were part of something greater, something beyond her comprehension. But as the melody continued, it began to take on a sinister quality. The notes grew darker, and the music became a mournful dirge that echoed through the mansion. Amelia's fingers, no longer under her control, continued to play, and she felt as though she were being pulled deeper into the haunting melody. The house seemed to come alive with the music. Shadows danced on the walls, and a chill filled the air. Amelia was no longer alone in the room. Spectral figures materialized, their ethereal forms swaying to the haunting melody. They seemed to be trapped in a never-ending dance, their faces twisted in sorrow. Amelia's voice joined the haunting melody, her soprano notes intertwining with an unseen presence. It was as though the mansion itself was singing, its mournful voice echoing through the room. The spectral figures reached out to her, their touch as cold as death. As the sinister crescendo of the music reached its peak, Amelia's world began to unravel. She was no longer in control of her own body, and the piano seemed to possess her. The notes became a cacophony of despair, and the spectral figures closed in, their faces contorted in agony. Amelia's sanity hung by a thread as she fought to break free from the melody's grip. She knew that she had become entangled in something beyond her understanding, something that threatened to consume her. The price of her talent was a heavy one, and she realized that she had ventured too far into the darkness of Ravenscroft House. With every note, Amelia's connection to the music grew stronger, and the spectral figures seemed to feed on her soul. The room itself began to change, its walls closing in, its darkness becoming suffocating. In a final, desperate act, Amelia's fingers struck a dissonant chord, breaking the melody's hold on her. The spectral figures recoiled, their wails of anguish echoing through the room. The cursed piano seemed to lose its power, and the haunting melody began to fade. Amelia stumbled away from the piano, gasping for breath. The room had returned to its eerie silence, and the spectral figures had vanished. The cursed melody had been silenced, but the price of its enchantment was etched on her soul. As she left Ravenscroft House, Amelia carried with her the haunting melody that had bound her to the mansion. The rain had subsided, and the mournful evening had given way to the first light of dawn. She knew that she would never be the same, that the melody would always be a part of her, a reminder of the power of music and the consequences of her ambition. The haunting melody of Ravenscroft House serves as a melancholic reminder of the price of talent and the allure of the mysterious. It is a tale of a cursed piano, a haunting melody, and the battle for one's soul in the face of supernatural forces beyond one's control. The dark pact of Hallowgate Manor. Hallowgate Manor, a brooding mansion, stood like a sentinel of darkness on a moonlit night. Its imposing silhouette seemed to devour the moon's feeble light, and the mansion exuded an air of malevolence that hung heavy in the air. It was within these ominous walls that Richard, a desperate man seeking salvation, would unknowingly bind himself to a sinister entity in a treacherous pact. The moon cast an eerie glow on the mansion's facade as Richard approached its foreboding entrance. His life had been a series of misfortunes, a relentless torrent of despair that had left him with no hope. Hallowgate Manor had a reputation for harboring secrets and offering deals to those in need, and Richard had heard the whispers that promised salvation within its walls. The mansion's interior was a labyrinth of shadows and secrets, its grandeur now faded and its atmosphere suffocating. The air was heavy with anticipation, as though the very walls of the mansion were aware of the desperate souls that sought refuge within. Richard's footsteps echoed through the silence as he ventured deeper into the heart of Hallow Manor. In the heart of the mansion, Richard discovered a room that seemed untouched by time. In its center, a dimly lit table held a series of arcane objects, each more enigmatic than the last. The room exuded an aura of malevolence, and Richard felt an unseen presence watching him from the shadows. It was then that he heard the voice, a sinister whisper that seemed to come from all directions. The voice offered him salvation, a way out of his endless cycle of despair. The entity within the mansion claimed it could grant him his deepest desires, but at a price. Richard, driven by desperation and the allure of a way out, agreed to the sinister pact. As the pact was sealed, the mansion itself seemed to come alive. Shadows danced on the walls, and the air grew cold. The entity that had offered Richard a deal materialized before him, its presence a chilling revelation. It was a being of darkness and deceit, its form shifting and contorting in the dim light. The entity revealed the consequences of the pact, a series of escalating horrors that would test Richard's resolve. It would demand sacrifices, both physical and spiritual, and as the moon outside waned, the horrors within the mansion grew. The first test of the pact was a malevolent force that haunted Richard's dreams. Night after night, he was tormented by visions of his darkest fears, his past sins, and the inevitable price he would have to pay. Sleep became a torturous ordeal, and the mansion's corridors seemed to twist and change, as though the very walls were conspiring against him. The second test was a physical one, as the mansion's architecture shifted to create treacherous obstacles that sought to harm Richard. Staircases led to nowhere, doors slammed shut on their own, and hallways seemed to stretch into infinity. It was a relentless assault on his sanity, a test of his determination to fulfill the pact. As the horrors escalated, the mansion itself became a malevolent entity, its walls closing in on Richard, its rooms changing and shifting to trap him. The entity reveled in his suffering, its sinister laughter echoing through the mansion. Richard was no longer in control of his own destiny. He was a pawn in a game of malevolence and despair. The reckoning of the pact came in a final, chilling confrontation with the entity. It demanded a sacrifice that would be the ultimate test of Richard's desperation. He was faced with a choice that would determine his fate, a choice between his own soul and the salvation he had sought. In a climactic struggle, Richard confronted the entity, using every ounce of his strength to break free from the pact's hold. It was a battle of wills, a test of his resolve in the face of supernatural forces beyond his comprehension. As the moon outside began to wane, the entity was vanquished, and Hallow Manor returned to its eerie silence. Richard, battered and broken, was left to confront the consequences of the forbidden deal he had made. The dark pact of Hallow Manor serves as a chilling reminder of the consequences of desperation and the allure of forbidden deals. It is a tale of a sinister entity, a treacherous pact, and the battle for one's soul in the face of malevolent forces beyond one's control. The haunting of Blackwood Manor. The night was shrouded in a thick fog that clung to the trees and whispered secrets of the past. Blackwood Manor loomed on the outskirts of the isolated town, its ancient stones weathered by centuries of forgotten stories. It was here that Sarah found herself, the unsuspecting inheritor of this ominous Victorian mansion. Sarah had never met her estranged great-great-grandmother, Lady Isabella, but when Mr. Blackwood, the enigmatic family lawyer, appeared on her doorstep with the news of her inheritance, Sarah's life took an unexpected turn. She had thought it a blessing, a chance at a fresh start, but as she approached the towering gates of Blackwood Manor, an unsettling feeling gnawed at her. The mansion, with its towering turrets and ivy-covered walls, was both breathtaking and eerie under the pale moonlight. Sarah's footsteps echoed through the grand foyer as she crossed the threshold. Dusty chandeliers hung low, their crystals catching the dim light like ghostly tears. Cobwebs clung to every corner, as if the very air was filled with the sighs of long-departed souls. Sarah's exploration led her to the library, where leather-bound books lined the shelves, their spines cracking with age. As she touched one, a shiver ran down her spine. Unbeknownst to her, the secrets of the past were buried within these pages, waiting to be unearthed. Days turned into weeks as Sarah settled into Blackwood Manor, her nights filled with restless dreams of a shadowy figure in a long, flowing gown. She couldn't deny the feeling that she was not alone in the mansion, that the whispers in the walls held more than mere echoes. Desperate for answers, Sarah reached out to Mr. Blackwood, the only connection to her family's past. He agreed to meet her at the mansion, his face a mask of stoic resolve. With a flicker of candlelight, they sat around an antique table, a crystal ball at its center. "We shall attempt to communicate with Lady Isabella," Mr. Blackwood said, his voice unwavering. "But be warned, the spirit world can be unpredictable." The seance began, the room growing colder as the atmosphere shifted. Sarah closed her eyes, her heart pounding in her chest, as Mr. Blackwood called out to the other side. Whispers filled the air, and the crystal ball trembled, revealing a ghostly figure. Lady Isabella materialized, her ethereal presence casting an eerie glow. Her eyes, filled with a centuries-old rage, locked onto Sarah's. "You," she hissed, "descendant of betrayal." Sarah's voice quivered as she stammered, "I didn't betray you. I never even knew you." Lady Isabella's form flickered, revealing glimpses of the past. Sarah watched in horror as the events unfolded before her eyes. Betrayal, lies, and a family's secret so dark it had been buried for generations. Sarah's great-great-grandmother had been wronged, and now her restless spirit sought vengeance. Mr. Blackwood urged Sarah to uncover the truth, to break the cycle of anger and despair that bound Lady Isabella to Blackwood Manor. Armed with newfound determination, Sarah delved into the mansion's history, unraveling the dark secrets that had festered for so long. Hidden passages and concealed letters led her to a forgotten basement, where a chilling discovery awaited. A room filled with dusty, decaying paintings, each one depicting the faces of those who had wronged Lady Isabella. The walls bore witness to the hatred that had consumed her. As Sarah pieced together the puzzle, she realized that her ancestors had not only betrayed Lady Isabella but had also condemned her to a life of misery. The mansion itself was a testament to their treachery, a prison for her tormented spirit. With newfound purpose, Sarah confronted Lady Isabella in the basement, her voice trembling but resolute. "I know what my family did, and I'm here to make amends." The ghostly figure wavered, torn between vengeance and the possibility of release. Sarah's plea touched something deep within Lady Isabella, a glimmer of the humanity she had lost over the centuries. In the end, it was an act of forgiveness that broke the curse. As the first rays of dawn bathed Blackwood Manor in light, Lady Isabella's spirit dissipated, leaving behind an overwhelming sense of relief. The mansion, once a place of darkness and despair, seemed to breathe with newfound life. Sarah knew that her family's sins could never be undone, but she had offered Lady Isabella the one thing she had longed for: a chance at peace. As Sarah stepped outside into the morning sun, she couldn't help but feel that the weight of centuries had lifted from her shoulders. The legacy of betrayal had come to an end, and Blackwood Manor, once haunted by a vengeful spirit, had found its long-awaited redemption. But Sarah knew that the echoes of the past would always linger in the shadows, a reminder of the sins that could never truly be forgotten. And as she walked away from the mansion, she couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden in the world, waiting to be uncovered by those who dared to confront the darkness within. The curse of Harrison House. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the sprawling, ancient estate known as Harrison House. It was a place that had stood for centuries, its time-worn stones steeped in history, and it beckoned the Harrison family with promises of a new beginning. Little did they know that their dream home would soon become a nightmarish descent into the abyss of the unknown. The Harrisons, a family of 4, had moved from the hustle and bustle of the city to this tranquil countryside estate, seeking solace and a fresh start. Their smiles were wide as they stood on the grand porch, taking in the magnificent view of rolling hills and a forest that seemed to stretch endlessly. As the days turned into weeks, Harrison House revealed its mysteries one by one. At first, it was the subtle changes. A chair moved, a door left ajar, whispered voices in the dark of night. The Harrisons brushed these off as the quirks of an old house, but they couldn't ignore the sense of unease that settled over them. The true terror began with the apparitions. First, it was a fleeting glimpse of a woman in a long, tattered gown, her eyes filled with sorrow. Then, a shadowy figure that moved silently through the halls, disappearing as quickly as it appeared. The family members exchanged fearful glances, their new beginning turning into a waking nightmare. The most unsettling part was the way the house seemed to change after nightfall. Rooms that had been cozy and inviting during the day became oppressive and suffocating. The walls seemed to close in, and the air grew heavy with an inexplicable dread. The Harrisons couldn't escape the feeling that they were being watched, monitored by unseen eyes. One fateful night, As the family huddled in their shared fear, a chilling voice echoed through the house. "Get out," it hissed, a malicious intent seeping into every syllable. The Harrisons, their faces pale with terror, knew they were not alone in Harrison House. Something malevolent, something ancient, sought to drive them away. Desperate for answers, they turned to the local townsfolk, hoping to uncover the dark history of the estate. What they learned sent shivers down their spines. Harrison House had a legacy of tragedy and sorrow, with each previous owner meeting a gruesome end or succumbing to madness. The townsfolk spoke of a curse born of jealousy and betrayal, one that had bound the malevolent presence to the estate for centuries. They warned the Harrisons that they were in grave danger, that the curse was relentless and would stop at nothing to claim their souls. But the Harrisons were determined to fight back. Armed with their love for one another and a newfound courage, they embarked on a journey to unravel the secrets of Harrison House and break the curse that threatened to tear their family apart. Their investigation led them to a hidden chamber beneath the mansion, a place where darkness converged with despair. There, they found a diary, its pages filled with the tormented scribblings of past residents who had tried in vain to escape the house's clutches. As they read, the walls of the chamber began to tremble, and the malevolent presence descended upon them. It manifested as a grotesque, spectral figure, its eyes burning with hatred. "You cannot escape," it howled, its voice echoing through the chamber. But the Harrisons were not alone. With the diary as their guide, they recited an incantation passed down through the generations, a desperate plea for salvation. As they spoke the words, a blinding light enveloped the chamber, and the curse began to unravel. The malevolent presence wailed in agony, its form dissipating into nothingness. The walls ceased their tremors, and the darkness that had haunted Harrison House for centuries began to recede. The sun rose over the estate, its rays bathing the mansion in a warm, welcoming light. The curse had been broken, and the Harrison family, battered but victorious, emerged from the hidden chamber, their bond stronger than ever. As they looked out over the countryside, they knew that Harrison House would forever bear the scars of its dark past. But it was a past that would no longer hold sway over their lives. The vulnerability of the family unit had been tested, and they had emerged from the ordeal with a newfound strength, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Harrison House had been a place of nightmares, but it had also become a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The relentless nature of evil had been defeated, and the Harrisons could finally call the ancient estate their home, a home free from the curse that had threatened to consume them all. The haunting of Darkmore Manor. The moon hung low in the midnight sky, casting a ghostly pallor over the sprawling, long-abandoned Darkmore Manor. The mansion stood atop a desolate hill, a foreboding sentinel of secrets and shadows. It had been the scene of countless tales, whispered through the ages, and Emily, a fearless paranormal investigator, had come to unravel its mysteries. Armed with cameras, voice recorders, and her unwavering skepticism, Emily had arrived at the mansion with the intent of debunking the countless stories of hauntings and horrors that had plagued it for generations. She was no stranger to the paranormal, having investigated numerous cases for her television show, but Darkmore Manor was different. It oozed malevolence, a palpable aura of dread that clung to its decaying walls. As Emily crossed the threshold, she couldn't help but feel a shiver crawl down her spine. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the shadows seemed to have a life of their own, dancing and flickering in the dim light. Her footsteps echoed through the empty hallways, a hollow reminder of the mansion's forgotten past. The night began with a series of unexplained sounds, a distant whisper, the creaking of a long-abandoned staircase, and the eerie melody of a piano that hadn't been touched in decades. Emily remained resolute, attributing each occurrence to the natural settling of an old, decaying structure. But as the hours passed, Darkmore Manor revealed its secrets in unsettling ways. Emily's cameras captured fleeting glimpses of figures in old-fashioned attire, their faces obscured by shadows. She analyzed the footage, searching for rational explanations, but the evidence was baffling. The apparitions defied logical explanation. As the night wore on, Emily's skepticism began to waver. She couldn't deny the mounting evidence of the supernatural. The whispers grew louder, their words indecipherable but filled with an ominous intent. Darkmore Manor seemed to feed on her fear, its malevolent presence growing stronger with each passing moment. Emily retreated to the mansion's library, her heart pounding in her chest. She had come to debunk the legends, but now she was trapped in a nightmare of her own making. The walls seemed to close in, and the shadows pressed closer as if they were hungry for her fear. In a desperate bid to regain control, Emily decided to conduct a seance. She lit a circle of candles and, with trembling hands, reached out to the spirits that had plagued the mansion for centuries. Her voice quivered as she called out, "If there are any spirits here, please make your presence known." The room grew cold, and Emily's breath misted in the air as an unseen force seemed to answer her call. The candles flickered and dimmed, casting eerie, dancing shadows on the walls. Emily's heart raced as she felt a presence in the room, a malevolent force that seemed to loom over her. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. A voice, as cold as ice and filled with malice, hissed in response. "I am the darkness that lingers, the shadow in the corners of your mind." Emily's hands shook as she struggled to maintain her composure. She had ventured into the realm of the supernatural countless times, but never had she encountered a force so malevolent, so intent on breaking her spirit. The room descended into chaos. Books flew off shelves, and furniture toppled over. Emily clutched the seance table, her knuckles white, as the malevolent presence seemed to close in around her. The walls pulsed with an otherworldly energy, and the air grew heavy with despair. In a final act of desperation, Emily recited a prayer of protection, a mantra she had learned in her years of investigating the paranormal. The words flowed from her lips, a beacon of light in the suffocating darkness. The malevolent force recoiled, its power diminishing with each word. Emily could feel its rage and frustration, a whirlwind of emotions that lashed out one final time before dissipating into the void. The room fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. Emily was left alone, shaken but alive. She knew that she had ventured too close to the edge of the supernatural. That Darkmore Manor held secrets that could not be easily explained away. As dawn broke, Emily emerged from the mansion, her eyes haunted by the events of the night. She had come to debunk the legends, to prove the skeptics right, but Darkmore Manor had shown her that there was a thin line between skepticism and belief. The malevolent presence that had tormented her had been real, a force that defied rational explanation. It had tested her resolve and pushed her to the brink of her sanity. And as Emily left the desolate hill behind, she couldn't help but wonder what other horrors lurked in the shadows, waiting for those who dared to venture into the realm of the unknown. The haunting of the doll collector. Claire had always been captivated by the delicate beauty of antique dolls, with their porcelain faces frozen in haunting expressions. They whispered secrets of the past and held a unique kind of allure. But Claire's fascination had grown into an obsession that would lead her down a path she could never have imagined. One fateful day, Claire stumbled upon an online listing for an estate sale at a decrepit mansion on the outskirts of town. The mansion was renowned for housing a vast collection of antique dolls, a treasure trove for a collector like Claire. Her heart raced with excitement as she read about the dolls, each one more exquisite and mysterious than the last. Without hesitation, Claire set off for the mansion, her heart pounding with anticipation. The mansion's imposing facade loomed before her, its grandeur marred by time and neglect. Cobwebs clung to the cracked windows, and the garden had become an overgrown labyrinth of thorns and twisted vines. As Claire entered the mansion, the air grew heavy with the scent of dust and decay. She marveled at the endless rows of dolls, each displayed with meticulous care. They ranged from delicate porcelain beauties to eerie wooden marionettes, their eyes following her every move. Claire's fingers trembled as she reached out to touch one of the dolls, drawn to its eerie charm. It was as if the doll had a life of its own, beckoning her to join the macabre dance of the collection. Hours turned into days as Claire lost herself in the mansion's haunting beauty. She ignored calls from concerned friends and family, her obsession with the dolls growing stronger with each passing moment. She no longer saw them as lifeless objects, but as her companions, her confidants. Then, one night, as Claire wandered the dimly lit corridors, she heard it, a soft, melodic whisper that seemed to emanate from the dolls themselves. "Join us," they cooed, their voices like a haunting lullaby. "Join us, Claire." Claire's heart pounded in her chest as she followed the voices, unable to resist their eerie allure. They led her to a hidden room at the heart of the mansion, a room she had never seen before. It was filled with dolls of all shapes and sizes, their eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. The dolls began to move, their joints creaking as they danced a macabre waltz. Claire watched in horror as they circled around her, their porcelain faces contorting into malevolent grins. She tried to scream, but her voice was drowned out by their haunting laughter. Desperate to escape, Claire stumbled back and collided with a dusty old mirror. As she gazed into her own reflection, her face contorted with terror. She saw herself, but not as she once was. Her skin had grown pallid, and her eyes mirrored the empty, lifeless gaze of the dolls. Claire knew then that she had become one of them, a part of the eerie collection that had ensnared her. She was trapped in the mansion, a prisoner of her own obsession. Days turned into weeks, and Claire's former life became a distant memory. She roamed the mansion with the other dolls, her movements stiff and mechanical. Her once vibrant spirit had been extinguished, replaced by an eerie emptiness. But deep within her porcelain prison, a small glimmer of consciousness remained. Claire yearned for freedom, for release from the torment of the haunted dolls. She knew that the key to her salvation lay in the mansion itself. One night, as the moon cast a pale glow over the mansion, Claire seized her chance. She climbed the creaking staircase to the attic, where the doll's power seemed to be at its strongest. The attic was a cavernous space filled with forgotten relics, a place where the dolls had whispered their secrets to her. As Claire confronted the dolls in the attic, a fierce battle of wills ensued. They taunted her with their haunting laughter, their whispers growing louder and more insistent. But Claire was determined to break free from their grasp. With every ounce of her remaining strength, she chanted an incantation she had discovered hidden in an old, dusty book. The words echoed through the attic, a beacon of hope in the suffocating darkness. The dolls shrieked and convulsed, their eyes flickering with fear. The room trembled as their power waned, and Claire felt herself growing stronger with each passing moment. In a blinding flash of light, the dolls were banished, their malevolent presence dissolving into the ether. Claire was free at last, her porcelain prison shattered. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, Claire emerged from the mansion, her spirit weary but victorious. She had learned the true cost of obsession and the consequences of tampering with the supernatural. The mansion would forever bear the scars of its haunted past. But Claire had escaped the clutches of the dolls, her spirit unbroken. She knew that the dolls would continue to haunt the mansion, waiting for the next unsuspecting victim to fall under their sinister spell. But Claire had a newfound appreciation for the world outside, a world where obsessions could be tamed, and where the pursuit of beauty did not come at the price of one's soul. As she left the mansion behind, Claire couldn't help but wonder if the doll's whispers would linger in the shadows of her mind, a reminder of the haunting experience that had forever changed her. The haunting of Seabrook Mansion. The night was shrouded in an impenetrable darkness as Detective Jameson stood before Seabrook Mansion, a once grand estate now abandoned and crumbling by the unforgiving sea. The mansion, perched on the edge of the cliff, seemed to hold the weight of centuries of secrets within its decaying walls. Jameson had been called to investigate a series of gruesome murders that had led him to this eerie place, but nothing could have prepared him for the horrors that awaited. The mansion's windows were shattered, and the wind whistled through the empty halls like the mournful cries of lost souls. As Jameson entered, the air grew heavy with the scent of dampness and decay. The walls bore the marks of time, and the grandeur of the past had given way to a haunting desolation. As he ventured deeper into the mansion, Jameson discovered old photographs and letters, remnants of a forgotten life. It was clear that the mansion had once been the site of a lavish and opulent existence, but now it lay in ruins, a testament to the passage of time. The first murder victim had been found nearby, and the evidence had led Jameson here, to Seabrook Mansion. The victim's death had been gruesome, a brutal act of violence that sent shivers down Jameson's spine. But as he delved deeper into the case, he uncovered a connection that sent a chill through his very soul, a connection to the mansion's dark history. Late one night, as Jameson sifted through old records and dusty archives, he heard a faint whisper in the darkness. "You should not have come," it hissed, a disembodied voice that seemed to echo through the mansion's corridors. Jameson's heart raced as he spun around, his gun drawn, but there was no one in sight. The mansion was empty, save for the shadows that danced in the dim light. He told himself it was a figment of his imagination, a result of the stress and exhaustion that came with the job, but deep down, he knew he was being watched. As the days turned into weeks, Jameson was haunted by the malevolent presence that seemed to linger in the mansion. He would catch glimpses of shadowy figures out of the corner of his eye, their ghostly forms flitting in and out of existence. The voice continued to taunt him, leaving eerie messages scrawled on the mansion's rotting walls. "You are not welcome here," it warned. The past should remain buried. Jameson's obsession with the case grew stronger with each passing day, and he couldn't ignore the feeling that the mansion held the key to solving the murders. He was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. But the malevolent spirit had other plans. One night, as Jameson lay in a fitful sleep, he was jolted awake by a ghostly figure standing at the foot of his bed. It was a woman in a tattered gown, her eyes filled with a seething rage. She was the vengeful spirit of the mansion, and she had come to claim him. "You seek answers," she hissed, her voice like a whispering wind, "but you will find only darkness." Before Jameson could react, the spirit lunged at him, her icy fingers closing around his throat. He gasped for breath, his vision growing dim as he struggled to break free from her otherworldly grip. In a desperate bid for survival, Jameson recited a prayer he had learned in his youth, a prayer of protection against the forces of darkness. The words spilled from his lips, a beacon of light in the suffocating darkness. The spirit recoiled with a howl of agony, her form dissipating into the night. Jameson gasped for breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that he had narrowly escaped the clutches of the vengeful spirit, but the darkness still loomed, and the mysteries of Seabrook Mansion remained unsolved. Determined to confront the malevolent presence once and for all, Jameson returned to the mansion, armed with knowledge and resolve. He descended into the bowels of the mansion, where he discovered a hidden chamber filled with old journals and diaries. As he read through the faded pages, Jameson uncovered the truth, a tale of betrayal, greed, and murder that had been buried for generations. The mansion had been the site of a heinous crime, a crime that had unleashed the vengeful spirit that now haunted its halls. With the knowledge in hand, Jameson made his way to the cliffs overlooking the sea, where the spirit awaited. The wind howled, and the waves crashed against the rocks below, creating a cacophony of sound that drowned out all else. The spirit materialized before him, her eyes burning with fury. "You will not uncover the truth," she hissed, her voice echoing in the stormy night. But Jameson stood his ground, his resolve unshaken. "I know what happened here," he declared. "I know the darkness that lingers." With those words, he recited an incantation, a plea for the spirit to find peace and release the mansion from its cursed past. The wind intensified, and the storm raged on, but Jameson's voice remained strong. In a blinding flash of light, the spirit wailed in agony, her form dissipating into the ether. The mansion itself seemed to tremble, and the malevolent presence that had plagued it for centuries began to recede. As dawn broke over the horizon, the storm abated, and Seabrook Mansion stood in solemn silence. Jameson knew that the mansion would forever bear the scars of its dark past, but he had confronted the vengeful spirit and brought closure to a long-forgotten tragedy. As he walked away from the cliff's edge, he couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that had consumed the mansion might still linger in the shadows, a reminder of the price of uncovering hidden truths. But Jameson had faced the specter of secrets, and in doing so, he had found redemption for himself and for the haunted mansion by the sea. The haunting of the Mirror Mansion. The grand mansion stood as a sentinel of opulence, its ornate mirrors gleaming in the soft glow of chandeliers. Olivia had always been drawn to the allure of reflection, and when she inherited this magnificent house, she was captivated by the countless mirrors that adorned its opulent halls. Little did she know that these mirrors held secrets that would shatter her world. Olivia had moved into the mansion with an insatiable curiosity. She had always been fascinated by the way mirrors could capture and distort reality, revealing hidden truths and concealing deep mysteries. The mansion's mirrors, however, were different. Each one seemed to hold a fragment of a past long forgotten. On her first night in the mansion, Olivia wandered the dimly lit corridors, her footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. As she gazed into the mirrors, she caught glimpses of ghostly figures, their reflections moving independently of her own. She dismissed it as a trick of the light, a product of her overactive imagination, but the unsettling feeling persisted. As the days turned into weeks, Olivia's fascination with the mirrors grew. She would spend hours staring into them, lost in the distorted reflections that danced before her. She began to notice subtle changes in her own reflection, an eerie glint in her eyes, a malevolent smile that was not her own. Late one night, as Olivia stood before a massive, gilded mirror in the mansion's ballroom, she heard a soft, melodic whisper in the stillness of the room. "Release me," it murmured, a voice both haunting and alluring. Olivia's heart raced as she spun around, searching for the source of the voice. But the ballroom was empty except for her own reflection, which seemed to taunt her with a wicked grin. She told herself it was a trick of the mind, a manifestation of her obsession with mirrors, but deep down, she knew that something was terribly wrong. The malevolent presence within the mirrors grew stronger with each passing day. Reflections began to act independently, moving of their own accord. Olivia would catch glimpses of herself in the mirror, her reflection mocking her with gestures and expressions that she had never made. It wasn't long before the mirrors themselves began to distort reality. Olivia would stare into them, only to see her own reflection contort into grotesque and nightmarish forms. She would watch in horror as her reflection moved independently, mimicking her every action with a sinister glee. The mirrors seemed to revel in their power over Olivia, trapping her in a nightmarish world where reality and illusion merged. She knew she had to escape the mansion, to break free from the malevolent entity that lurked within the mirrors, but it was too late. The mirrors had become her prison, and there was no way out. One night, as Olivia wandered through the mansion's labyrinthine halls, she found herself drawn to the mirrored ballroom. The chandeliers cast a soft, ethereal glow, and the mirrors seemed to beckon her with their eerie allure. As she stepped into the ballroom, her reflection twisted and contorted in the mirrors, each one revealing a different facet of her torment. The malevolent presence within the mirrors had grown stronger, and Olivia could feel its icy grip tightening around her soul. In a desperate bid for escape, Olivia reached out to one of the mirrors, her fingers trembling as they touched the glass. Suddenly, her reflection pulled her in, and she was sucked into the mirror itself, a realm of endless reflections and distorted reality. Inside the mirror, Olivia found herself trapped in a nightmarish world where reflections acted independently, their malevolent laughter echoing in the eerie silence. She struggled to break free, to find a way back to the real world, but the mirrors seemed to have a life of their own. Desperation consumed her, and Olivia knew that she had to confront the malevolent entity that had ensnared her. She ventured deeper into the mirror's twisted realm, guided by the whispers of the spirit that lurked within. Finally, she came face to face with the vengeful entity, a shadowy figure that had been trapped within the mirrors for centuries. It was a reflection of her own vanity and obsession, a malevolent spirit born from her own desires. The spirit taunted her, its voice a chilling echo of her own. "You wanted to capture reality," it hissed, "but now reality has captured you." Olivia knew that she had to break free from the malevolent entity's grasp, to shatter the mirrors that held her captive. With all the strength she could muster, she confronted the spirit, her willpower pitted against its malevolence. In a blinding flash of light, the mirrors shattered, and Olivia was propelled back into the real world. She emerged from the mirrored ballroom, her body shaken but victorious. The malevolent entity had been vanquished, and the mansion's mirrors lay in ruins. As Olivia left the mansion behind, she couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that had consumed her might still linger in the shadows, a reminder of the dangers of vanity and obsession. But she had faced the mirror's reflection, and in doing so, she had found a way to break free from the malevolent entity's grip. The mansion, once a place of allure and distortion, now stood in solemn silence. Its mirrors lay shattered, their power broken, and the malevolent entity trapped within them forever banished. Olivia had escaped the mirror's haunting grasp, but the haunting memories of her ordeal would stay with her, a reminder of the price of vanity and the dangers of obsession. The haunting melodies of Blackwood Mansion. Lily had always been captivated by the power of music. From the tender age of 6, when her fingers first touched the keys of a piano, she knew that music was her true calling. Her passion for the piano had led her to the grand Blackwood Mansion, a place steeped in history and mystery. The mansion, with its towering spires and ivy-covered walls, loomed in the moonlight like a specter from another time. It was a place of both beauty and melancholy, and Lily had been inexplicably drawn to it. Upon moving into the mansion, Lily discovered the centerpiece of the grand music room, a magnificent piano, its ebony and ivory keys gleaming in the soft glow of candelabras. It was a work of art, and Lily knew that she had found her muse. Late one night, as she sat before the piano, her fingers dancing across the keys, she heard a faint, haunting melody, an exquisite piece of music that seemed to transcend time itself. But she was alone in the room, and the sound of the piano was impossible to ignore. She listened in awe as the music swelled and soared, its notes echoing through the mansion's echoing halls. It was as if the piano itself had come to life, playing a melody that was both haunting and beautiful. As the days turned into weeks, Lily continued to hear the ghostly pianist playing in the dead of night. She was enthralled by the music, but also haunted by its mysterious source. She knew that there was something otherworldly at play, something that defied explanation. One evening, as she explored the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, Lily stumbled upon a hidden room. Inside, she found an old leather-bound book filled with sheet music, its pages yellowed with age. It was a collection of compositions written by the mansion's former owner, a gifted pianist named Alexander Blackwood. The sheet music was unlike anything Lily had ever seen. It was as if each piece had been infused with the soul of its creator, conveying emotions that transcended time and space. She realized that the ghostly pianist was none other than Alexander Blackwood himself, trapped within the mansion's walls, his music an eternal echo of his soul. As Lily played the compositions, she felt a deep connection to Alexander, as if his spirit guided her fingers across the keys. The music flowed through her, a haunting and melancholic lament that spoke of lost love and unfulfilled dreams. But as Lily delved deeper into Alexander's compositions, she began to unravel the tragic story of his life. He had been a brilliant pianist who had once graced the stages of Europe's grandest concert halls. But a tragic accident had left him paralyzed, his dreams shattered and his music silenced. Desperate to find a way to continue his passion for music, Alexander had turned to the supernatural, invoking dark forces to bind his spirit to the mansion's piano. It was a desperate act born of despair and longing, and it had condemned him to an eternity of haunting melodies. Lily knew that she had to help Alexander find peace, to free him from the mansion's grasp. She ventured into the music room one fateful night, her heart heavy with determination. As she played Alexander's compositions, the ghostly pianist joined her, his spectral hands caressing the keys. The music swelled, a haunting and bittersweet symphony that seemed to transcend the boundaries of life and death. But as the final notes faded, Lily could feel Alexander's presence growing weaker, his spirit fading into the shadows. She knew that she had to make a choice. To free Alexander from his torment, she had to sever the link between him and the piano. With trembling hands, she reached into the hidden compartment of the piano, where she discovered an old, weathered manuscript, the ritual that had bound Alexander's spirit to the instrument. As she recited the incantation, the mansion seemed to tremble, and the room filled with a blinding light. Lily could feel Alexander's presence growing stronger, his spirit no longer trapped by the piano's malevolent grasp. With a final, bittersweet smile, Alexander's ghostly figure materialized before her. He thanked Lily with a nod, his eyes filled with gratitude, and then he slowly faded away, his spirit finally at peace. As the mansion fell silent, Lily knew that she had helped Alexander find redemption. And in doing so, she had uncovered the enduring power of music and the ability of art to transcend the boundaries of time and space. She continued to play Alexander's compositions, sharing his haunting melodies with the world. And as the music echoed through the mansion's halls, she couldn't help but feel his presence beside her, a reminder of the enduring nature of art and the beauty that could be found in even the darkest of places. The haunting of Sinclair Mansion. The Sinclair family had always dreamed of a fresh start in a grand old mansion, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. When they stumbled upon the gloomy, Gothic mansion nestled in a fog-shrouded forest, it seemed like a dream come true. Little did they know that their new home held secrets darker than the shadows that clung to its walls. As they settled into the mansion, the Sinclair family couldn't help but feel a creeping unease. The grandeur of the mansion was undeniable, but it was also shrouded in an oppressive darkness that seemed to seep from its very walls. It was on the first night that they encountered the shadows. As they gathered in the dimly lit dining room for dinner, they saw them, a flickering movement in the corners of their vision, dark forms that darted out of sight when they turned to look. At first, they dismissed it as a trick of the mind, a product of their imagination running wild in their new, eerie surroundings. But as the days passed, the shadows grew bolder, creeping closer and closer to the Sinclair family. One evening, as young Emily Sinclair played with her toys in the parlor, she noticed her shadow stretching and distorting on the wall, its form contorting into grotesque shapes. She screamed in terror, and her parents rushed to her side, but there was no explanation for what they had witnessed. The shadows seemed to take on a life of their own, slithering across the floors and climbing the walls. They would gather in dark corners, their malevolent presence casting an oppressive pall over the mansion. As night fell, the mansion came alive with sinister shadows, and the Sinclair family felt as though they were trapped in a nightmare. They would hear whispered voices in the darkness, the shadows seeming to speak to them in hushed, sinister tones. Desperate to escape the malevolent shadows that haunted their new home, the Sinclair family tried to leave the mansion, but they found that the doors were locked, the windows sealed shut. It was as if the mansion itself had conspired to trap them within its walls. As the days turned into a harrowing week, the Sinclair family grew more and more terrified. They would wake to find their beds surrounded by the shadows, their forms looming over them as they slept. The shadows seemed to feed on their fear, growing darker and more sinister with each passing night. In their desperation, the Sinclair family searched the mansion for answers, uncovering old books and journals that spoke of a dark ritual performed in the mansion's past, a ritual that had bound the shadows to the mansion and condemned its inhabitants to an eternity of torment. With each passing day, the shadows grew bolder, their forms growing more grotesque and menacing. They would reach out with inky tendrils, their touch sending shivers of dread down the Sinclair family's spines. In a desperate bid for escape, the family ventured into the mansion's labyrinthine corridors, their footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. But no matter which way they turned, they found themselves surrounded by the sinister shadows, their forms closing in, threatening to consume them. It was in the darkest hour of their despair that they stumbled upon a room filled with inky darkness, a room that seemed to be the epicenter of the malevolent shadow's power. As they entered the room, the shadows seemed to come alive, their forms writhing and contorting in the darkness. In the heart of the room, they found an old, weathered manuscript, a ritual that could break the binding between the shadows and the mansion. With trembling hands, they recited the incantation, their voices trembling with fear and determination. As they spoke the final words of the incantation, a blinding light filled the room, and the shadows wailed in agony, their forms dissipating into the ether. The oppressive darkness that had haunted the mansion for so long began to lift, and the Sinclair family knew that they had broken free from the malevolent shadow's grasp. As they left the mansion behind, they couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that had consumed them might still linger in the shadows, a reminder of the fear of the unknown and the darkness within us all. But they had faced the shadows within, and in doing so, they had found the strength to conquer their deepest fears and escape the haunted mansion and the fog-shrouded forest. The haunting of the Portrait Mansion. Alex had always been drawn to the power of art. As an aspiring artist, the idea of capturing the essence of a person's soul on canvas fascinated him. So when he stumbled upon the grand mansion filled with portraits of its previous residents, he thought he had found his muse. Little did he know that the portraits held secrets that would shatter his understanding of art and reality. The mansion stood in solemn silence, its walls adorned with portraits of the long-deceased. Each painting depicted a resident of the mansion, their eyes following Alex as he moved through the dimly lit hallways. It was as if the souls of the past lingered in the frames, waiting for someone to acknowledge their existence. Alex couldn't resist the allure of the portraits. He spent hours in the mansion's gallery, studying each painting with an artist's discerning eye. The faces in the portraits seemed to come to life under his gaze, their expressions shifting and their eyes revealing hidden emotions. One evening, as he stood before a portrait of a young woman with hauntingly sad eyes, he heard a faint, ethereal whisper. "Help us," it murmured, a voice both haunting and desperate. Startled, Alex turned to the painting, but the gallery was empty except for the portraits. He told himself it was his imagination playing tricks on him, that he was letting the mystery of the mansion get the best of him. But deep down, he knew that something otherworldly was at play. As the days turned into weeks, the spirits within the portraits grew bolder. They would step out of their frames and walk the halls of the mansion at night, their spectral forms casting eerie shadows. They whispered in hushed tones, their voices filled with longing and despair. Alex couldn't resist their call. He began to paint the spirits, capturing their ethereal forms on canvas. With each stroke of his brush, he felt a deeper connection to the souls of the past. But as he painted, he also sensed their growing desperation, their need to be released from the confines of the mansion and its haunting portraits. One night, as Alex painted the spectral figure of a young boy, the spirit reached out to him, its cold, bony fingers grazing his hand. He could feel the spirit's pain and sorrow, and he knew that he had to help them find release. Desperate to uncover the truth, Alex delved into the mansion's history, uncovering old journals and diaries that spoke of a dark ritual performed in the past, a ritual that had bound the souls of the mansion's residents to their portraits, condemning them to an eternity of torment. With each revelation, Alex felt a growing sense of responsibility to free the tormented spirits. He learned that the key to breaking the binding lay in a long-forgotten incantation, a chant that could sever the connection between the spirits and their portraits. One fateful night, as the spirits gathered in the gallery, Alex recited the incantation, his voice trembling with fear and determination. The room filled with a blinding light, and the spirits wailed in agony as their forms began to dissipate. But as the last note of the incantation faded, one spirit remained, a spectral figure of a woman with tear-filled eyes. She was the last to be released, the final soul to find freedom. With a bittersweet smile, The woman nodded her gratitude to Alex, her eyes filled with unspoken emotion, and then she slowly faded away, her spirit finally at peace. As the mansion fell silent, Alex knew that he had helped the spirits find redemption, and in doing so, he had uncovered the power of art to capture the soul. He continued to paint, sharing the stories of the mansion's residents with the world through his art. The mansion, once a place of mystery and torment, now stood in solemn silence. Its portraits had lost their haunted aura, their occupants finally at rest. Alex couldn't help but wonder if the power of the forgotten portrait might still linger in the shadows, a reminder of the consequences of neglecting the past. But he had faced the spirits within, and in doing so, he had found the true essence of art and the ability of creativity to transcend the boundaries of time and space. The haunting of the eternal dinner party. The invitation had arrived in a delicate envelope, bearing the crest of an elegant mansion that seemed to have materialized out of a forgotten era. Emily, intrigued by the mysterious invitation, found herself drawn to the promise of an unforgettable experience. As she approached the mansion, its grandeur was undeniable. The wrought iron gates swung open, and Emily made her way up the sweeping driveway. The mansion stood like a sentinel in the moonlight, its windows aglow with a warm, inviting light. The moment Emily stepped into the mansion's opulent foyer, she knew that this was no ordinary dinner party. The guests, impeccably dressed in garments from a bygone era, mingled in the lavishly decorated rooms, their laughter and conversation filling the air. The grand dining room was the centerpiece of the evening, its long table adorned with crystal chandeliers and fine china. Emily took her seat among the guests, her curiosity growing with each passing moment. As the dinner began, Emily couldn't help but notice the strange atmosphere that hung over the room. The guests, though seemingly alive, had a haunted look in their eyes. Their laughter was forced, their smiles masking a deeper torment. The courses kept coming, each one more lavish than the last. But Emily began to notice that something was amiss. The guests would take a bite of their food, only to have it replenished before their eyes. The wine glasses never emptied, and the dishes never grew cold. As Emily engaged in conversation with her fellow diners, she learned the horrifying truth. They were trapped in a never-ending dinner party, a ghastly cycle of indulgence and torment. The mansion was a prison, and they were its eternal guests. As the hours stretched into what felt like an eternity, the guests began to reveal their tragic stories. Each one had been lured to the mansion by the promise of pleasure and luxury, only to become ensnared in its malevolent grasp. There was a young woman who had been a talented musician in her former life, her hands forever bound to the strings of a phantom violin. There was a gentleman who had been a renowned chef, now condemned to an eternity of preparing meals that would never be consumed. And there was an elderly couple, once deeply in love, now forever separated by the confines of the mansion. As the night wore on, Emily felt a growing sense of dread. She knew that she had to find a way to escape the mansion's clutches, to break free from the never-ending cycle of horror. But the mansion's grip was unyielding, its opulence a facade that concealed its true nature. Desperate for answers, Emily ventured into the mansion's shadowy corridors, her footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. She discovered a hidden room, its walls adorned with old portraits of the mansion's guests, frozen in time with haunted expressions. In the center of the room, she found an old, weathered diary, a diary that detailed the mansion's dark history. It spoke of a cursed dinner party that had taken place decades ago, a night of decadence and indulgence that had led to the guests' eternal torment. With each revelation, Emily's resolve grew stronger. She knew that she had to confront the malevolent force that held the mansion and its guests in its thrall. She returned to the dining room, where the guests were trapped in their endless cycle of pleasure and despair. With a trembling voice, Emily revealed the mansion's dark history, the curse that had bound them to this never-ending dinner party. The guests' expressions shifted from confusion to terror, their haunted eyes filling with recognition. As Emily recited the incantation she had discovered in the diary, the mansion seemed to tremble, its opulent facade crumbling before their eyes. The guests' tormentors, ghostly figures that had masqueraded as servants, appeared in a blinding light. With a final, chilling scream, the malevolent force was banished, and the mansion's grip was broken. The guests, freed from their eternal torment, vanished into the night, their spirits finally at peace. The mansion, once a place of decadence and horror, now stood in solemn silence. Its grandeur had faded, its rooms empty and devoid of life. Emily couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that had consumed the mansion might still linger in the shadows, a reminder of the price of indulgence and the cycle of eternal torment. As she left the mansion behind, Emily knew that she had faced the horrors of the eternal dinner party and emerged victorious. The memories of that night would stay with her, a haunting reminder of the price of indulgence and the enduring nature of the human spirit. The haunting of Hallow Manor, deep within the heart of a dense, fog-shrouded forest. There stood an ominous structure known as Hallow Manor. Its once grand facade, now weathered and crumbling, cast eerie shadows that seemed to dance with the swirling mist. The Victorian mansion had long been abandoned, left to the ghosts of its past. Sarah, a skeptical journalist with a penchant for uncovering hidden truths, found herself drawn to Hallow Manor by the whispers of its chilling legends. William, a reclusive historian obsessed with the mansion's dark history, had spent years researching its secrets in the solitude of his study. Their paths converged on a misty evening as they independently approached the ominous mansion, their footsteps muffled by the damp forest floor. Sarah's camera dangled from her neck, ready to capture any evidence of the supernatural, while William clutched a leather-bound tome filled with the Chronicles of Hallow Manor. As they entered the mansion, a feeling of claustrophobia enveloped them. The air grew heavy with the weight of the past, and the grand entrance hall seemed to stretch endlessly before them. Dusty portraits of long-forgotten family members lined the walls, their eyes following the intruders with silent accusation. Their journey led them to a hidden chamber, concealed behind a bookcase that swung open with an eerie creak. The room within was shrouded in darkness, save for a single candle flickering on an ancient oak table. In the dim light, they discovered an assortment of peculiar objects: a cracked porcelain doll, a tarnished pocket watch frozen in time, and a tattered diary filled with the anguished musings of a tormented soul. Sarah's skepticism wavered as she began to sense a presence in the room, a whisper in the stillness that sent shivers down her spine. The candlelight flickered more violently, casting distorted shadows on the walls. "Is there someone here with us?" Sarah asked, her voice quivering. William, equally unnerved, replied, "I believe so. The spirits of Hallow Manor are not at rest." As if in response to their words, the room trembled, and the objects on the table came to life, levitating in a haunting dance. The porcelain doll's eyes glowed with malevolence, and the pocket watch ticked with an otherworldly rhythm. They decided to conduct a spectral seance, using an ancient Ouija board they found hidden beneath the table. With trembling fingers, they placed their hands on the planchette and called upon the spirits of the mansion to communicate. "Is there anyone here who wishes to speak?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. The planchette moved of its own accord, spelling out the name Isabel. A chill ran down Sarah's spine as she realized it was the name etched on the diary they had found. "Isabel," William began, "we mean no harm. We seek to understand your story, the story of Hallow Manor." The planchette moved again, spelling out a tale of tragic love and betrayal, of a forbidden affair that had torn the mansion's occupants apart. Isabel's spirit had been trapped within the walls of Hallow Manor, cursed to relive her heartache for eternity. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she felt the pain and longing emanating from the spirit. She whispered, "We will help you find peace, Isabel. We promise." But the atmosphere in the room grew darker, and the shadows seemed to close in around them. Isabel's spirit became increasingly agitated, her presence turning malevolent. In a terrifying climax, the walls of the chamber seemed to bleed with a sickly, crimson hue, and the temperature plummeted. Isabel's apparition materialized before them, her eyes filled with anguish and rage. "You cannot help me," she shrieked, her voice echoing through the mansion. "You will suffer as we have suffered." Sarah and William felt a force pulling them deeper into the room, their bodies freezing in place. Isabel's ghostly hands reached out toward them, her touch like ice on their skin. They were trapped, ensnared by the vengeful spirit's wrath. Just as it seemed all hope was lost, a deafening crash echoed through the mansion. The cursed family portrait that hung in the chamber had fallen from the wall, shattering on the floor. In that instant, the malevolent force released its grip on Sarah and William. They stumbled out of the chamber, gasping for breath, the mansion itself seeming to exhale as if relieved of a terrible burden. Isabel's spirit, now free from her torment, faded into the ether. With the curse lifted, Hallow Manor became still, its malevolence no longer palpable. Sarah and William left the mansion, their quest for truth complete, but forever haunted by the chilling ordeal they had faced within its walls. As they made their way through the dense, fog-covered forest, the wind whispered secrets of the past, carrying the echoes of Hallow Manor's haunting tale far into the night. The camera shutter clicked, capturing the final image of the mansion, standing solitary and eerie amidst the mist. Hallow Manor had shared its story, but it would forever remain a place of dread and darkness, a testament to the enduring power of the supernatural. And so, the legend of Hallow Manor lived on, a chilling reminder of the consequences of meddling with the unknown and the persistence of evil in the darkest corners of the world. Whispers in the shadows. The imposing mansion stood atop a desolate hill, its once grand facade now worn and derelict. It loomed like a specter against the moonlit sky, surrounded by overgrown gardens and twisted, skeletal trees. Ivy clung to its walls like ghostly fingers, and the windows glistened with a sinister sheen. Emily, a troubled psychic with a penchant for the supernatural, had been tormented by haunting whispers in the night. They called to her, beckoning her to the mansion on the hill. James, a skeptical paranormal investigator known for his relentless pursuit of the unknown, was hired to uncover the secrets of the mansion that had whispered to Emily's troubled soul. The wind howled mournfully as Emily and James approached the mansion's decaying entrance. A flickering candle lantern cast eerie shadows on the cobblestone path, leading them toward the gaping maw of the forsaken house. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and the night was alive with a sense of impending doom. Inside, the mansion's grandeur had succumbed to time's relentless march. Chandeliers once ablaze with opulent light now hung like mournful specters from the ceiling, their crystals dulled and their metal tarnished. Faded wallpaper clung desperately to the walls, bearing silent witness to the mansion's past glories. Emily's heart raced as she heard the whispers grow louder, filling the air with their sorrowful longing. James, ever the skeptic, listened intently, his face etched with a mix of curiosity and doubt. "They are calling us," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. James nodded, his eyes fixed on the flickering candlelight. "Then let's see what they have to say." As they ventured further into the mansion, the whispers coalesced into ethereal melodies, guiding them to a grand ballroom bathed in ghostly moonlight. The room was frozen in time, a testament to opulence and extravagance long past, but it was the spectral figures that commanded their attention. Ghostly couples swayed in a spectral dance, their translucent forms moving gracefully to the haunting music. The gossamer gowns of long-dead women flowed like mist, and the tuxedos of their phantom partners exuded an eerie elegance. Among the dancers, a figure stood out, a woman with flowing raven hair, her eyes locked in a mournful gaze. "The lady in black," Emily whispered, recognizing her from her visions. James watched in awe as the spectral ballroom dance unfolded before them, a tragic display of love transcending death. The figures seemed trapped in an eternal waltz, their hearts forever bound by a love that defied the boundaries of the living and the dead. Determined to communicate with the spirits, Emily and James set up a seance in the ballroom. The room grew colder, and the flickering candlelight danced with a newfound intensity. Emily's hands trembled as she placed them on the planchette, while James watched, his skepticism waning. "Is there anyone here who wishes to speak?" Emily asked, her voice steady despite her fear. The planchette moved slowly, spelling out words with deliberate grace. "We are bound by love and loss," it spelled. "Release us from this eternal dance." The spirit's tale unfolded, a tragic love story of a forbidden affair that had led to the mansion's curse. The lady in black, Isabella, had fallen in love with a servant, a love that had defied the rigid social hierarchy of the time. They had been discovered, and their love had cost them their lives, forever binding their spirits to the mansion. Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she felt the weight of their pain. James, his skepticism shattered, whispered, "We will help you find peace." But the atmosphere in the room grew darker, and the shadows seemed to reach out, binding Emily and James. Isabella's spirit, once beautiful and mournful, now twisted with rage and despair, lashed out at them. In the chilling climax, the mansion trembled, and the floor beneath them cracked. The ballroom dissolved into a chaotic whirlwind of emotions. The ghostly figures transformed into malevolent phantoms. "We are trapped," Isabella's voice echoed, her once mournful eyes now filled with hatred. James and Emily fought against the supernatural force, struggling to break free. Just as it seemed they would be consumed by the mansion's wrath, Emily spotted a haunted music box atop a dusty piano. With trembling hands, she wound the music box, releasing a haunting melody that pierced the chaos. The mansion shuddered, and the malevolent spirits were momentarily silenced. Emily and James made their escape, their bond with the spirits severed by the music box's mournful tune. As they emerged from the mansion, they looked back at the imposing structure, now shrouded in a deep, eerie silence. The whispers had ceased, and the mansion stood still, its malevolence subdued. The legend of the mansion on the hill lived on, but now it carried a note of tragic beauty, a love story that transcended death and a darkness that had been banished by a haunting melody. And so, the mansion remained a silent sentinel on the desolate hill, a place where love and loss had once danced in the moonlight, and where the living had dared to confront the whispers in the shadows. The Curse of Blackwood Manor. The town of Blackwood was shrouded in perpetual fog, an eerie veil that concealed its secrets and cast a foreboding pallor over the landscape. At the outskirts of this small, mysterious town stood Blackwood Manor, an imposing mansion with a dark history that sent shivers down the spines of all who passed by. Michael, an archaeologist with a thirst for uncovering hidden truths, arrived in Blackwood with a singular purpose: to unravel the curse that had plagued the enigmatic Blackwood Manor for generations. Alina, a local historian with a deep connection to the cursed estate, was his guide in this treacherous journey into the past. The mansion, nestled amidst overgrown gardens and gnarled trees, stood as a silent sentinel to the town's grim history. Its once grand facade had succumbed to time's relentless march, and ivy had woven a tangled web of malevolence around its walls. As Michael and Alina ventured into Blackwood Manor, they were met with a suffocating atmosphere, a tangible presence of dread that hung in the air like an ominous shroud. Flickering candlelight revealed dusty hallways adorned with portraits of a once prosperous family, their eyes following the intruders with a silent accusation. Their journey led them to a hidden chamber, concealed behind a bookcase that swung open with a sinister creak. The room was adorned with artifacts from a bygone era, a chilling testament to the sins of the past. A tarnished family tree hung on one wall, its branches tracing the lineage of a family ensnared by greed and malice. Alina, her voice trembling, explained, "Generations of the Blackwood family have suffered under the curse. Their insatiable greed led them to commit unspeakable deeds, and now their spirits are bound to this wretched place." Michael, undeterred by the looming malevolence, declared, "We must uncover the truth, Alina. Only then can we hope to break the curse." As they delved deeper into Blackwood Manor's grim history, they unearthed the story of a forbidden tomb, an ancient mausoleum hidden beneath the mansion's foundations. Legends whispered that it held the key to the curse's origins. In their quest for answers, Michael and Alina descended into the tomb's depths, their torches casting flickering shadows on the ancient stone walls. The air grew colder with each step, and the oppressive silence was broken only by the echoes of their footsteps. At the heart of the tomb lay a crypt bearing the Blackwood family crest. The moment Michael pried open the lid, an otherworldly presence filled the chamber. Vengeful apparitions materialized, their spectral forms exuding an unearthly malevolence. Alina cried out, "They guard their secrets, Michael. We must be resolute." The spirits, their eyes burning with a spectral fire, moved closer. They whispered tales of avarice and betrayal, of dark rituals and the binding of souls to the cursed estate. The malevolent force behind the curse was awakened by their intrusion, and its wrath manifested in the form of chilling winds and bone-chilling laughter. Determined to confront the malevolent force, Michael and Alina conducted a seance in the heart of the tomb. Candle flames danced wildly as they called upon the spirits to reveal the truth. The planchette moved with deliberate grace, spelling out the tragic tale of a family consumed by greed and an insatiable hunger for power. The curse had been born of their own transgressions, and their souls were forever imprisoned within the mansion's walls. Tears welled in Alina's eyes as she heard the agony in the spirits' voices. She whispered, "We must free them from this torment." But the atmosphere grew darker, and the malevolent force struck back with a ferocious fury. The tomb trembled, and the spirits' apparitions twisted into grotesque forms. Michael and Alina found themselves ensnared by an otherworldly force, their very souls at risk of being consumed. In a heart-pounding climax, Alina spotted a hidden passage leading out of the tomb, a way to escape the malevolent grasp. With every ounce of strength, they broke free, stumbling into the cold, dank air of the mausoleum. As they emerged, they witnessed a ghostly procession through the town, a spectral parade of the town's inhabitants, their faces etched with suffering on the anniversary of the curse. The spirits were trapped in a never-ending cycle of torment, reliving their sins on this night each year. Determined to end the curse, Michael and Alina faced a final showdown with the malevolent force that had bound the spirits. They unearthed a relic, a symbol of sacrifice, and offered it to the malevolent presence. In that climactic moment, the mansion trembled, and the spirits' wails filled the air. The curse was shattered, and the spirits of Blackwood Manor were released from their torment. A sense of peace descended upon the mansion, and the fog that had enveloped Blackwood for centuries lifted. As Michael and Alina left Blackwood Manor behind, they knew they had uncovered the truth and broken the cycle of greed and malevolence that had plagued the town. The mansion stood as a silent witness to their courage, a place where the sins of the past had been laid to rest. And so, Blackwood Manor's curse was no more, a testament to the consequences of greed, the haunting weight of unresolved emotions, and the redemptive power of sacrifice. It would forever be remembered as a place where the sins of the past had finally found redemption. The Haunting of Hawthorne House. Hawthorne House stood alone, perched like a solemn sentinel atop a windswept cliff, its decaying splendor an eerie testament to a past long forgotten. The coastline stretched out below, desolate and unforgiving, its waves crashing against the jagged rocks with a relentless fury. Rachel, a fearless paranormal investigator with a fascination for the supernatural, had heard whispers of the mansion's haunting beauty. Thomas, a reclusive artist drawn to the melancholic allure of the house, had been compelled by an invisible force to visit. Together, they would unravel the secrets of Hawthorne House. The moment they crossed the threshold, a sense of unease settled upon them like a heavy shroud. Dusty tapestries lined the walls, their colors faded with age, and the grand chandeliers hung from the ceiling like fragile memories of opulence. Rachel's camera dangled from her neck, poised to capture any evidence of the supernatural, while Thomas's sketchbook was always within reach, ready to immortalize the house's eerie beauty. As they ventured deeper into Hawthorne House, ghostly apparitions began to materialize before them, a pair of lovers, their spectral forms translucent in the dim light. The man held the woman's ethereal hand, their eyes locked in a melancholic embrace. "The lovers of Hawthorne House," Rachel whispered, recognizing them from her research. Thomas watched in awe as the spectral couple moved gracefully through the mansion, their presence both haunting and beautiful. They danced through the halls, swaying to a tune only they could hear, their movements imbued with an otherworldly grace. "Their love transcends death," Thomas remarked, his voice filled with wonder. As the lovers vanished into the shadows, Rachel and Thomas made their way to a grand chamber, the heart of Hawthorne House. It was here that they decided to conduct a seance, a desperate attempt to communicate with the spirits. The room grew colder as they lit a circle of candles, their flickering flames casting eerie shadows on the aged wallpaper. Rachel's hands trembled as she placed them on the planchette, while Thomas watched, his curiosity piqued. "Is there anyone here who wishes to speak?" Rachel asked, her voice steady despite her fear. The planchette moved, spelling out words with deliberate grace. "We are bound by love and longing," it spelled. "Help us find peace." The spirit's story unfolded, a tragic love affair that had been forbidden by society's conventions. The man, Henry, had been a servant, and the woman, Isabel, the daughter of the mansion's owner. Their love had defied social boundaries and ultimately led to their demise, binding their spirits to the mansion for all eternity. Tears welled in Rachel's eyes as she felt the weight of their love and the agony of their separation. Thomas, his heart heavy with emotion, whispered, "We will help you find peace." But the atmosphere in the room grew darker, and the shadows seemed to reach out, binding Rachel and Thomas. Isabel's spirit, once beautiful and mournful, now twisted with rage and despair, lashed out at them. In a chilling climax, the room trembled, and the paintings on the walls came to life, their subjects writhing in agony. The malevolent force behind the haunting sought to claim Rachel and Thomas, imprisoning them alongside the lovers. Just as it seemed all hope was lost, Thomas spotted a cursed painting on the wall, the very painting he had been compelled to create of Hawthorne House. With a burst of inspiration, he realized it held the key to their salvation. With trembling hands, he slashed the canvas with a paintbrush, releasing a burst of color that clashed with the mansion's oppressive darkness. The curse was shattered, and the malevolent presence was banished. Rachel and Thomas emerged from Hawthorne House, their bond with the spirit severed by Thomas's artistic sacrifice. The mansion, once haunted by sorrow and despair, now stood in silent melancholy. As they made their way down the windswept cliff, they looked back at the mansion, its beauty now tinged with the memory of a tragic love story. The lovers of Hawthorne House had found peace, and the curse that had bound them had been broken. And so, Hawthorne House lived on, a hauntingly beautiful place where love transcended death, where the power of art captured the soul, and where the enduring nature of memory and desire remained etched in the very walls of the mansion. It stood as a testament to the enduring power of love and the sacrifices made to find peace in the afterlife. The Shadows of Ravenswood Manor. Ravenswood Manor, an ancient mansion cloaked in perpetual twilight, stood as a solemn sentinel in the heart of a twisted, haunted forest. Its grandeur, now weathered by the relentless march of time, exuded an aura of malevolence that seemed to seep into the very soil. Olivia, a tenacious paranormal researcher with a penchant for the supernatural, had heard whispers of the shadowy entities that plagued Ravenswood Manor. Henry, a mysterious recluse known for his connection to the malevolent spirits of the house, had been drawn back to confront the darkness of his past. As they ventured into the twisted forest that surrounded Ravenswood Manor, lanterns flickering in the encroaching darkness, the air grew colder and the trees seemed to whisper ominous secrets. The mansion loomed ahead, a gothic monolith shrouded in a perpetual gloom that defied the time of day. Olivia's camera, poised to capture any evidence of the supernatural, dangled from her neck, while Henry's knowledge of the malevolent spirits served as their guide. The mansion's grand entrance hall, a cavernous space adorned with faded portraits of a long-forgotten family, stretched endlessly before them. Their journey led them to a foreboding chamber, where a cursed mirror hung on the wall. Its reflection held a horrifying truth, a glimpse into the darkest recesses of the past. As Olivia and Henry stared into its depths, they saw glimpses of cruelty and suffering, the shadows of Ravenswood Manor's tragic history. Henry's voice trembled as he recounted the tale. A cruel lord once ruled this mansion. He reveled in tormenting those who served him, until one fateful night when his cruelty led to a tragedy that binds this house to the malevolent spirits. Olivia nodded, her determination unwavering. We must confront the shadows, Henry. Only then can we hope to banish them. As they ventured deeper into Ravenswood Manor, they encountered the malevolent shadows, an ominous presence that clung to the mansion's walls and lurked in the corners of their vision. The shadows whispered in sinister voices, their presence growing stronger with each passing moment. In a chilling encounter, Olivia and Henry found themselves surrounded by the malevolent entities, their forms shifting and coalescing into grotesque shapes. The shadows reached out, their icy touch sending shivers down their spines. "We are trapped," Olivia cried out. But Henry, his connection to the spirits strong, declared, "We will not be their victims." With a surge of resolve, they conducted a seance in the haunted chamber, the cursed mirror serving as a portal to the spirit's realm. Candles flickered in the eerie silence as they called upon the malevolent shadows to reveal themselves. The room grew colder, and the mirror's reflection darkened as the spirits materialized before them. They whispered tales of torment and suffering, of souls trapped in the mansion's cursed embrace. The malevolent force that bound them had grown stronger with each passing year. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes as she felt the pain and despair emanating from the spirits. Henry, his connection to the shadows undeniable, whispered, "We will free you from this darkness." But the atmosphere in the chamber grew darker, and the mirror's reflection twisted into grotesque forms. The malevolent force sought to claim Olivia and Henry, imprisoning their souls alongside the spirits. In a heart-pounding climax, Henry spotted a faint light in the mirror's reflection, a glimmer of hope amidst the encroaching darkness. With every ounce of strength, he shattered the cursed mirror, releasing a burst of blinding light that banished the malevolent shadows. As Olivia and Henry emerged from Ravenswood Manor, they knew they had confronted the darkness of the past and banished the malevolent spirits that had plagued the mansion for centuries. The mansion, once a place of suffering, stood in eerie silence. As they made their way through the twisted forest, they looked back at the mansion, its grandeur now tainted by the memory of cruelty and redemption. The shadows of Ravenswood Manor had been vanquished, and the fragile boundary between the living and the dead had been preserved. And so, Ravenswood Manor lived on, a place where the consequences of cruelty had been confronted, where the power of darkness and redemption had been balanced, and where the shadows had been banished to the depths of history. It stood as a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to confront even the darkest of forces. The Haunting of Harrogate House. Harrogate House, an ancient and sprawling mansion, stood isolated on a fog-enshrouded moor, surrounded by a graveyard that stretched as far as the eye could see. The very air seemed heavy with the weight of history, and the gravestones whispered tales of lives long past. Amelia, a psychic medium with a gift for communicating with the dead, had been drawn to Harrogate House by the restless spirits that lingered within. Jonathan, a skeptical professor of folklore, had arrived with a hidden agenda of his own to uncover the family secret that had long haunted the mansion. Their paths crossed amidst the fog, two strangers brought together by a series of eerie events that defied explanation. Amelia's senses tingled with the presence of the departed, while Jonathan's curiosity piqued at the prospect of unraveling the supernatural mysteries that clung to Harrogate House. The mansion's interior, shrouded in gloom, creaked with the weight of its history. Dusty portraits lined the walls, their subjects staring out with hollow eyes. The air was laden with the scent of aged books and the faint, melancholic whispers of the past. Amelia's presence seemed to awaken the spirits, and they made their presence known. Creaking floorboards echoed with ghostly footsteps, and doors opened and closed of their own accord. Amelia felt an unsettling energy, as if the very walls were trying to communicate. Jonathan, though skeptical, couldn't deny the eerie occurrences. Together, they decided to hold a seance in the Grand Hall, a desperate attempt to communicate with the restless spirits and uncover the truth. As they gathered in the dimly lit room, candles flickering in the eerie silence, Amelia's senses reached out to the other side. The atmosphere grew colder, and the seance took an ominous turn as the spirits made their presence known. In a heart-stopping moment, the seance went horribly wrong. The candles flickered violently, and the room plunged into darkness. A chilling wind swept through the hall, extinguishing the candles one by one. Amelia's connection to the spirits intensified, and their presence felt overwhelmingly malevolent. "We've awakened something dark," Jonathan whispered, his skepticism giving way to fear. The room seemed to come alive with ghostly apparitions, shadowy figures with hollow eyes and outstretched hands. They reached for Amelia and Jonathan, their cold touch sending shivers down their spines. "We are bound by secrets," the spirits whispered, their voices echoing through the darkness. "Secrets that have festered for generations." Amelia and Jonathan fled from the haunted hall, their hearts pounding with terror. The malevolent spirits of Harrogate House were not to be trifled with. The secrets of the past were buried deep within the mansion's walls, and they hungered for release. As they ventured deeper into Harrogate House's dark history, they encountered ghostly apparitions in the graveyard, a spectral procession of the mansion's long-departed inhabitants. The spirits seemed to mourn their own demise, forever trapped in the land of the living. Jonathan's quest to uncover the family secret led him to a hidden chamber within the mansion, an ancient library filled with dusty tomes and a cursed family journal. The journal revealed a shocking truth, a history of betrayal, greed, and a terrible curse that had befallen the Harrogate family. Amelia, guided by her psychic abilities, uncovered the secrets that had bound the spirits to Harrogate House. A long-buried family feud had led to a tragic event, and the spirits sought vengeance for the injustices of the past. In a climactic revelation, they learned that Jonathan had a connection to the family's secret, a connection he had hidden from them all along. He had come to Harrogate House with the intention of finding the cursed family journal and keeping its secrets for himself. The malevolent spirits, their rage intensifying, confronted Jonathan with the truth. He had meddled with forces beyond his understanding, and now the consequences would be dire. As the malevolent spirits closed in, Amelia and Jonathan faced a final battle to banish the darkness that had plagued Harrogate House for generations. The mansion trembled as the spirits unleashed their fury, their vengeful presence manifesting in terrifying forms. In a heart-pounding climax, Amelia and Jonathan joined forces, using their unique abilities to confront the malevolent spirits and uncover the truth. With every ounce of strength, they banished the darkness that had consumed the mansion. As they emerged from Harrogate House, they knew they had uncovered the family's secret and freed the malevolent spirits from their torment. The mansion, once haunted by secrets and despair, stood in eerie silence. As they looked back at Harrogate House from the fog-enshrouded moor, they knew that the power of secrets to bind and destroy had been confronted, that the thin line between the living and the dead had been navigated, and that the consequences of meddling with the unknown had been felt to their core. And so, Harrogate House lived on, a place where the past and present intertwined, where secrets were laid bare, and where the spirits of the past found both vengeance and release. It stood as a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to confront the darkest of truths. The Haunting of Hollowbrook House. Hollowbrook House stood like a forgotten sentinel on the outskirts of an abandoned village, its dark silhouette shrouded in a thick, impenetrable fog that hung in the air like a heavy shroud. Charlotte, a fearless paranormal investigator with a penchant for the unexplained, and Samuel, a historian obsessed with uncovering the house's grim history, found themselves drawn to the eerie mansion by disturbing visions that haunted their dreams. As they ventured closer, the air grew colder and the fog thickened, wrapping Hollowbrook House in an otherworldly cloak of isolation. The village, abandoned and overgrown, whispered tales of a tragedy long buried. Charlotte's camera hung around her neck, poised to capture any evidence of the supernatural, while Samuel's tattered journals held the secrets of Hollowbrook House's history. The mansion's grand facade, once a symbol of opulence, now crumbled under the weight of time and neglect. Their exploration led them to a foreboding chamber, where ghostly apparitions seemed to replay a tragic event, a spectral reenactment of a family torn apart by despair and betrayal. Charlotte and Samuel watched in silence, their hearts heavy with the weight of history. "It's as if the past refuses to let go," Charlotte whispered. Samuel nodded, his gaze fixed on the spectral figures. "These spirits are bound by their anguish." As the reenactment faded, Charlotte and Samuel decided to hold a seance, a desperate attempt to communicate with the restless spirits and unearth the truth about Hollowbrook House's tragic past. They gathered in the dimly lit chamber, candles flickering ominously in the stillness. The atmosphere grew colder, and the seance took an ominous turn as the spirits made their presence known. Charlotte's connection to the other side intensified, and the room seemed to vibrate with their restless energy. "We are trapped in a cycle of longing," the spirits whispered, their voices echoing through the darkness. "We cannot rest until our story is told." Charlotte and Samuel listened intently, their hearts heavy with the spirits' pain. Samuel, his knowledge of history guiding him, whispered, "We must uncover the truth and release them from this torment." But the atmosphere in the chamber grew darker, and the spirits' voices grew more mournful. The malevolent force behind the haunting sought to claim Charlotte and Samuel, imprisoning their souls alongside the restless spirits. In a heart-pounding climax, Samuel spotted a cursed family diary on a dusty shelf, a diary that chronicled the house's tragic past. With trembling hands, he opened its pages, revealing a history of betrayal, heartache, and a terrible curse that had befallen the Hollowbrook family. Charlotte, her connection to the spirits unwavering, read aloud the diary's haunting accounts of family secrets and a love lost to tragedy. The spirits, their presence manifesting in the room, watched with hollow eyes as the truth of their past was laid bare. In a climactic revelation, they learned that Samuel had a connection to the house's tragic history, a connection he had hidden from them all along. His ancestors had been intertwined with the Hollowbrook family, and the curse that had befallen them still held sway over the mansion. The malevolent spirits, their rage intensifying, confronted Samuel with the truth. He had meddled with the past, and now the consequences would be dire. As the malevolent spirits closed in, Charlotte and Samuel faced a final battle to release the restless souls and unearth the truth. The chamber trembled as the spirits unleashed their fury, their vengeful presence manifesting in terrifying forms. In a heart-stopping moment, they confronted the malevolent force and revealed the long-buried secrets of Hollowbrook House. The curse was shattered, and the spirits were released from their torment. As Charlotte and Samuel emerged from the mansion, they knew they had uncovered the truth and freed the malevolent spirits from their anguish. The mansion, once haunted by tragedy and betrayal, stood in eerie silence. As they looked back at Hollowbrook House from the abandoned village, they knew that the persistence of tragedy had been confronted, that the power of memory and longing had been harnessed for the spirit's release, and that the consequences of disturbing the resting souls had been felt to their core. And so, Hollowbrook House lived on, a place where the past and present intertwined, where secrets were revealed, and where the spirits found peace at last. It stood as a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to confront even the darkest of histories. The Curse of Ravenscroft Manor. Ravenscroft Manor loomed like a sinister sentinel amidst a fog-draped graveyard and shadowy crypts, its grandeur cloaked in a veil of perpetual gloom. Daniel, a resolute paranormal investigator, and Alina, a woman with a mysterious connection to the malevolent spirits that plagued the house, found themselves drawn to the mansion by a series of eerie events that defied explanation. As they approached the mansion, the air grew colder and the fog thickened, obscuring their vision and shrouding Ravenscroft Manor in an aura of relentless darkness. The graveyard, an eerie sea of tombstones, whispered tales of lives long past. Daniel's camera, poised to capture any evidence of the supernatural, hung around his neck, while Aliner's pale features betrayed a deep knowledge of the malevolent spirits that lurked within. The mansion's foreboding facade, its grandeur marred by time and decay, seemed to exude a palpable sense of dread. Their exploration led them to a somber chamber, where ghostly apparitions materialized before them, a chilling encounter with the malevolent spirits that haunted Ravenscroft Manor. The room was filled with the mournful echoes of their voices, their presence a testament to the relentless nature of their torment. Aliner, her connection to the spirits undeniable, whispered, "They are bound by vengeance, trapped in a cycle of despair." Daniel nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of their anguish. "We must confront the malevolent spirits and unearth the truth about this curse." As the apparitions faded, Daniel and Aliner decided to hold a seance, a desperate attempt to communicate with the restless spirits and shed light on the curse that had plagued Ravenscroft Manor for generations. They gathered in a dimly lit chamber, candles flickering ominously in the oppressive silence. The atmosphere grew colder, and the seance took a sinister turn as the malevolent spirits made their presence known. Aliner's connection to the other side intensified, and the room seemed to vibrate with their restless energy. "We seek retribution," the spirits hissed, their voices laced with malice. "We will not rest until our tormentors pay the price." Daniel and Aliner listened intently, their hearts heavy with the spirit's thirst for vengeance. Aliner, her gaze fixed on the ethereal figures, whispered, "We must uncover the truth and put an end to their suffering." But the atmosphere in the chamber grew darker, and the spirits' voices grew more ominous. The malevolent force behind the haunting sought to claim Daniel and Aliner, imprisoning their souls alongside the restless spirits. In a heart-pounding climax, Daniel spotted a cursed family portrait on the wall, a portrait that revealed the malevolent spirits and their connection to the Ravenscroft family. With trembling hands, he studied the painting, unraveling the secrets it held within its brushstrokes. Aliner, her connection to the spirits unwavering, recounted the history of the Ravenscroft family, a history marred by betrayal, greed, and a terrible curse that had befallen them. The spirits, their presence manifesting in the room, watched with hollow eyes as the truth of their torment was laid bare. In a climactic revelation, they learned that Aliner had a connection to the curse, a connection she had concealed from them all along. Her ancestors had played a role in the tragedy that had befallen the Ravenscroft family, and now the malevolent spirits sought retribution. The malevolent spirits, their rage intensifying, confronted Aliner with the truth. She had meddled with forces beyond her understanding, and now the consequences would be dire. As the malevolent spirits closed in, Daniel and Aliner faced a final battle to break the curse and release the tormented souls. The chamber trembled as the spirits unleashed their fury, their vengeful presence manifesting in horrifying forms. In a heart-stopping moment, they confronted the malevolent force and revealed the long-buried secrets of Ravenscroft Manor. The curse was shattered, and the spirits were released from their torment. As Daniel and Aliner emerged from the mansion, they knew they had uncovered the truth and freed the malevolent spirits from their cycle of despair. Ravenscroft Manor, once a place haunted by vengeance, stood in eerie silence. As they looked back at the mansion from the fog-draped graveyard, they knew that the weight of family secrets had been confronted, that the price of vengeance had been paid, and that the relentless nature of malevolent spirits had been subdued. And so, Ravenscroft Manor lived on, a place where the past and present had been reconciled, where the spirits had found release, and where the curse that had plagued the Ravenscroft family had been broken at last. It stood as a testament to the enduring power of human determination in the face of the darkest of curses. The Haunting of Hollowvale House. Hollowvale House, a decaying mansion hidden deep within the heart of a fog-choked, haunted forest, stood as a chilling sentinel of the supernatural. Isabella, a determined paranormal researcher, and Samuel, a local guide with a dark connection to the forest, found themselves drawn to the sinister mansion by a relentless desire to uncover its secrets. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the air grew thick with mist, and the towering trees cast long, eerie shadows. The twisted branches seemed to claw at the sky, as if warning trespassers to turn back. But Isabella's unwavering determination and Samuel's enigmatic knowledge led them further into the unknown. Isabella's equipment, designed to capture evidence of the supernatural, hung from her shoulder, while Samuel's haunted gaze seemed to penetrate the very heart of the forest. Hollowvale House, a dark silhouette on the horizon, beckoned them with its secrets and mysteries. Their exploration led them to the decaying doorstep of the mansion, where malevolent spirits roamed the hallways. A chilling encounter with the supernatural entities that haunted Hollowvale House. The air inside the mansion was heavy with the weight of centuries, and the restless spirits whispered tales of despair. Isabella, her senses tingling with the presence of the departed, whispered to Samuel, "These spirits are trapped, bound to this house by an unseen force." Samuel nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "We must confront the malevolent spirits and unravel the mysteries that bind them here." As the apparitions faded, Isabella and Samuel decided to hold a seance, a desperate attempt to communicate with the restless spirits and uncover the secrets of Hollowvale House. They gathered in a dimly lit room, candles flickering ominously in the darkness. The atmosphere grew colder, and the seance took a sinister turn as the spirits made their presence known. Isabella's connection to the other side intensified, and the room seemed to vibrate with their restless energy. "We seek release," the spirits hissed, their voices laced with sorrow. "We are trapped in this cursed place." Isabella and Samuel listened intently, their hearts heavy with the spirit's anguish. Samuel, his knowledge of the forest guiding him, whispered, "We must uncover the truth and free them from their torment." But the atmosphere in the room grew darker, and the spirits' voices grew more desperate. A sinister force within the forest sought to claim Isabella and Samuel, imprisoning their souls alongside the restless spirits. In a heart-pounding climax, Isabella spotted a cursed family talisman hidden among the decaying relics of the mansion, an artifact that held a dark secret. With trembling hands, she examined the talisman, unlocking the secrets of its malevolent power. Samuel, his connection to the forest undeniable, recounted the forest's history, a history marred by ancient rituals, curses, and a sinister force that bound the spirits to Hollowvale House. The spirits, their presence manifesting in the room, watched with hollow eyes as the truth of their torment was laid bare. In a climactic revelation, they learned that Samuel had a connection to the forest's dark history, a connection he had concealed from them all along. His ancestors had been intertwined with the malevolent force that plagued the forest, and now the spirits sought retribution. The malevolent spirits, their rage intensifying, confronted Samuel with the truth. He had meddled with forces beyond his understanding, and now the consequences would be dire. As the malevolent spirits closed in, Isabella and Samuel faced a final battle to break the curse and release the tormented souls. The mansion trembled as the spirits unleashed their fury, their vengeful presence manifesting in horrifying forms. In a heart-stopping moment, they confronted the malevolent force and revealed the long-buried secrets of the forest. The curse was shattered, and the spirits were released from their torment. As Isabella and Samuel emerged from the mansion, they knew they had uncovered the truth and freed the malevolent spirits from their relentless suffering. Hollowvale House, once a place haunted by dark forces, stood in eerie silence. As they looked back at the mansion from the heart of the fog-choked, haunted forest, they knew that the consequences of disturbing ancient spirits had been confronted, that the power of nature and its connection to the supernatural had been harnessed, and that the thin boundary between the living and the dead had been navigated with unwavering determination. And so, Hollowvale House lived on, a place where the past and present coexisted, where secrets were revealed, and where the spirits found release at last. It stood as a testament to the enduring power of human resolve in the face of the darkest of mysteries. The Haunting of Hollowbrook House. Hollowbrook House, a decaying mansion that clung to the edge of a fog-draped, forgotten village, exuded an aura of abandonment and isolation. Lucy, a fearless paranormal investigator, and Jonathan, a historian with an insatiable fascination for the village's history, were drawn to this desolate place by strange occurrences that defied explanation. As they ventured deeper into the village, the fog grew thicker, shrouding everything in an eerie, damp embrace. The once vibrant village square now lay in disrepair, its cobblestone streets cracked and overgrown with weeds. Hollow homes stood as mere shells of their former selves, their windows empty eyes that watched without seeing. Lucy's equipment, ready to capture any evidence of the supernatural, hung from her shoulder, while Jonathan's eyes darted from one abandoned building to the next, searching for traces of the village's forgotten history. Hollowbrook House, a brooding presence at the village's edge, beckoned them to unlock its secrets. Their exploration led them to a somber village square, where spectral apparitions seemed to replay a tragic event, a spectral reenactment of a family torn apart by sorrow and betrayal. Lucy and Jonathan watched in silence, their hearts heavy with the weight of history. It's as if the past refuses to be forgotten, Lucy whispered. Jonathan nodded, his gaze fixed on the ghostly figures. These spirits are bound by the village's collective memory. As the reenactment faded, Lucy and Jonathan decided to hold a seance, a desperate attempt to communicate with the restless spirits and unveil the truth about Hollowbrook House and the village. They gathered in a dimly lit village square, candles flickering ominously in the fog-laden air. The atmosphere grew colder, and the seance took a sinister turn as the spirits made their presence known. Lucy's connection to the other side intensified, and the village square seemed to resonate with their silent pleas. "We are the echoes of the past," the spirits whispered, their voices tinged with sorrow. "We cannot rest until the truth is known." Lucy and Jonathan listened intently, their hearts heavy with the spirits' longing. Jonathan, his knowledge of the village's history guiding him, whispered, "We must uncover the truth and release them from this perpetual torment." But the atmosphere in the square grew darker, and the spirits' voices grew more mournful. An oppressive force within the village sought to claim Lucy and Jonathan, imprisoning their souls alongside the restless spirits. In a heart-pounding climax, Lucy spotted a cursed family heirloom on a dilapidated bench, an artifact that held the key to the village's dark history. With trembling hands, she examined the heirloom, unlocking the secrets it held within its tarnished surface. Jonathan, his connection to the village's history undeniable, recounted the tales of betrayal, heartache, and the curse that had plagued Hollowbrook House and the village for generations. The spirits, their presence manifesting in the square, watched with hollow eyes as the truth of their tragic past was laid bare. In a climactic revelation, they learned that Lucy had a connection to the village's history, a connection she had concealed from them all along. Her ancestors had played a role in the tragedy that had befallen the village, and now the spirits sought closure. The spirits, their sorrow intensifying, confronted Lucy with the truth. She had meddled with the past, and now the consequences would be dire. As the spirits closed in, Lucy and Jonathan faced a final battle to release the tormented souls and unveil the village's dark secrets. The village square trembled as the spirits unleashed their grief, their vengeful presence manifesting in chilling forms. In a heart-stopping moment, they confronted the malevolent force and revealed the long-buried truths of Hollowbrook House and the village. The curse was shattered, and the spirits were released from their perpetual torment. As Lucy and Jonathan emerged from the village square, they knew they had uncovered the truth and freed the spirits from their haunted existence. The village, once haunted by betrayal and sorrow, stood in eerie silence. As they looked back at Hollowbrook House and the forgotten village from the edge of the fog-draped landscape, they knew that the weight of forgotten history had been confronted, that the power of collective memory had been harnessed, and that the consequences of disturbing the spirits of the past had been felt to their core. And so, Hollowbrook House and the forgotten village lived on, a place where the past and present converged, where secrets were revealed, and where the spirits had found peace at last. It stood as a testament to the enduring power of human resolve in the face of the darkest of histories.